Welcome. I am your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMA LOTN. Joined as always by my Canadian brethren. We got Cody Saftic over there. You guys can find him at CJ Saftic on Twitter. And we're here propping you up for a big UFC 259 card headlined by 3 title fights. We got Jan Blachowicz putting up his light heavyweight strap against Israel Adesanya. We got Amanda Nunes defending her second belt, the featherweight strap against Megan Anderson. And then we got a pivotal bantamweight scrap. One of the fights I'm probably looking forward to the most on this card is Petr Yan defending his title against Aljamain Sterling. Amazing night of fights, 15 fights. Who knows how many we're going to get by the time we get to the fight card itself, but I'm very much looking forward to breaking it down with my guy, Cody. Cody, what are your preliminary thoughts for the UFC's offerings this weekend?
Yeah, listen, dude, I'd watch 2 homeless guys fight over a sandwich, realistically. But every time there's a pay-per-view, you always got to question a little bit, like, is this the UFC's best offering? And last time out, you like Kamaru Usman, but he's taken on the number 7th guy in the division in Gilbert Burns. And there's nothing else on the card. There's not a great co-main event. There's not some of these aged former WEC champs or, some of these former Pride guys. Like, it was a weak card. The pay-per-views prior to that, you got Davidson Figueiredo. They tried to sell you 2 pay-per-views from him, in fact. So this is the first time where it's like, oh yeah, this is what it's all about. These are the cards that you get up for. 3 title fights, and quite literally base every prelim. There's like 3 or 4 prelims here that could headline a fight night card. It's a very solid offering. The one thing is 15 fights. What the UFC's thinking, they think some of these fights are going to fall off. You see it every week. We get 15 fights. We get amped for it. We get through here. We try to get through them as quick as we can. Still takes 2 hours. And then ultimately we lose 2, 3, 4 fights come fight night. So I love this card so much. I really am knocking on wood that you just keep together, baby. Keep together. I really do enjoy it. So happy to be here talking fights with you, my man.
I think the last time I was this jacked up for a pay-per-view was UFC 251, and we have a similar culprit here in Petr Yan, who beat Jose Aldo that night, but we also got Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal that night, as well as the rematch of Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway. In terms of how this card stacks up against that one, I'm really much looking forward to this one because it just seems like the talent is much more spread out throughout the card. So I'm very much looking forward to that. All right, before we get into the breakdowns and stuff, always a reminder, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe below. It helps out your boys a ton. Obviously helps out the odds crew as well, to keep us coming back on a week-to-week basis. And the support that you guys have shown us since we started this thing, I think it was like the end of April or end of November. Amazing support, and it continues to grow on a week-to-week basis. So shout out to everybody that's supporting me and Cody just through this show alone, and then obviously on the final weigh-in tomorrow that we usually do on Friday nights. All right, let's get this thing rolling. No further ado. We got the first fight of the night. We got Trevin Jones against Mario Bautista. Heavy favorite here in Mario Bautista, minus 230, plus 190 on Trevin Jones on the return. I won't be too quick on, or I'll be pretty quick on this one so that I can let Cody get into it. But I really like Mario Bautista in this spot. I think he's a very good fighter. His only flaw or that only defeat coming via Corey Sandhagen, and I believe that was a short notice fight as well too. So pretty tough task to go in there against a highly touted prospect in Corey Sandhagen coming up short. But then he's looked amazing his last 2 fights. Right, goes out there, beats Jinsu Sun in a fight of the night performance, cashes that fight of the night check, and then the next fight around goes out there and flying knees Miles John's head into orbit and cashes a knockout of the night performance bonus as well. So the guy has 100 grand in performances in 3 UFC fights. The guy is all action. He's very fun to watch, very entertaining, and he brings a very diverse skill set when it comes to the striking range, which I think is going to give Trevin Jones a ton of problems here. The guy seems to accept his back foot a little bit too much and allow his opponent to kind of dictate the pace. And you don't want to let a guy like Mario Bautista coming out of the MMA lab dictate the pace and put it on you. Personally, I think he has the opportunity to win this fight even via submission. I think that's a very live prop here. And that's plus 535. I think he could potentially, club and sub him, or maybe even take him down and lock something up. But I like Bautista here. I like his pace. I like his pressure. I like his grittiness, mixed into the fact that he's going to be peaking at the same time as his teammates, Casey Kenny and Kyler Phillips, who are also fighting on this card. It's a recipe for disaster for my guy, Trevin Jones. I'm going with Bautista. I like the sub prop here. How are you liking this one?
Yeah, I agree with you. I like Mario Bautista a lot. Ever since he came to the UFC, it's like there's something about this kid. He's young, he's scrappy, he's got good wrestling, he's got good pace, good cardio. The Corey Sandhagen fight, yeah, he's on short notice. It's his UFC debut. It's a really, especially in hindsight, this is a really tough spot. He was understandably the underdog coming into that fight, and he gets dropped by a flying knee and just like perseveres, gets up, gets a takedown, catches a leg kick, gets a takedown on Sandhagen, then gets armbarred. I remember I had Sandhagen in that spot, but thinking to myself, I'll bet this Mario Bautista kid his next time out. Like, this is a tough spot. If they give him something lesser, he takes Jusu Sun. And then you see it's like, oh, man, he does got good output. Lands 124 significant strikes. His wrestling's in check. Just one of these guys from the MMA lab. You see a routine. These guys got skills everywhere. They could wrestle. They love the low calf kick. And you made a great point. He's on this card with two of the teammates, Casey Kinney and Kyler Phillips. And they're both bantamweights, And then you look at Sean O'Malley's in the gym and another bantamweight. It's like when you're able to train with different styles, like you got Casey Kinney, a short little guy that can kind of do it all as well, but he's got a great kick game and he's got great takedowns. And you got O'Malley, he's super unorthodox and he's long and he's rangy and he's a good striker from the outside. Alexander Pantoja used to be out of that gym as well. And Henry Cejudo is out of that gym as well. And now you're just like, oh man, they got a ton of these lower weight class guys, but even the higher guys, even Benson Henderson, even Drakkar Klose, they all love the calf kick. And that's really something that was highlighted last week. Yes, it's been the technique of the week for a couple months now.
Yeah.
You're really seeing the effectiveness in it. And the MMA lab loves to drill home that point. So one thing with Trevin Giles is that he does kind of stand a little bit upright. But yeah, like you said, he fights off his back foot and he just doesn't do a whole lot. So I can see Bautista going out there and just out-voluming him. As far as the wrestling, yeah, wrestling's in the back pocket. Not only can Bautista wrestle and does have good takedowns, Trevin Jones' takedown defense is just super lackluster. He does a fairly good job of working his way back up to his feet, but the takedowns are going to be there. So Bautista could just outwork him based on volume, sprinkling some takedowns, win these rounds. However, I'm going Bautista by decision. It's plus 140. Fight to go the distance all around, minus 160. But in specific, you look at Trevin Jones, he's got 6 pro losses, 5 of them by decision, 4 of them by split decision, and he's been submitted 1 time. That time he got submitted was 8 years ago against a 23 fight veteran, and it was his 6th pro fight, Alvin Kakdak, a longtime journeyman, but a guy that's dangerous, got some decent wins. So it's like, okay, he has durability. He's losing these split decisions. He's fought 5 rounds before. And in the Timur Valiev fight, his chin checked out, man. A lot of refs would have stopped that. A lot of fighters would have quit. But not this guy, he persevered. He got through it. And then the second round still doesn't do a whole lot. But he does show that check right hook in almost all of his fights. That's his move. He's got a straight left down the pipe because he's a southpaw. And he goes check right hook. Could he clip Mario Bautista? Sure, it's an MMA fight. But beyond that, the more likely scenario is Bautista just works him with the striking, mixes in those takedowns, wins that decision. Plus money 140 on Bautista by decision. That's the route I went.
Yeah, I believe on Bet Online, he opened up at like minus 130 or something like that. And he's just been absolutely steamed. And you can tell the public loves this guy. He has a bright future. And you can tell just by watching some of his fights. All right, let's keep things moving along. We got Uroš Medic coming up against Alan Cruz. Obviously, Alan Cruz last time around dropped a knockout loss to Spike Carlisle, who's no longer with the UFC. Uroš Medic, on the other hand, coming from the famed Alaska FC scene, comes into the Contender Series and fights another guy that seems like he could have easily made a name for himself on the Alaska FC scene as well, in Mikey Gonzalez. But my qualm here with Uroš Medic is his level of competition, right? You can look like an absolute world beater going up against some of these guys. And, most of his opponents that he went up against on that regional scene looked like they didn't even want to be in there. Like as soon as they felt this guy's strike or a power or anything from this guy, they just folded almost immediately. Like, let's give props to that guy, Alonzo, whatever the hell his last name is. Yeah. First of all, not the Alonzo you're expected to see when you turn this tape on. But then you see the guy go out there and just wants to take this fight to the ground, but just flopping at every little instance where you see Medic try to land a strike in that fight. So very tough to tell how powerful this kid actually is with the strikes. Now he's making good improvements by actually going down to King's MMA, training with Rafael Cordero, Benio Dariush. I'm trying to remember the other guy that was more often than not training with him, but he's getting some good looks now. That's the best thing you can do, is distance yourself from your hometown. And sometimes it may not seem loyal to do that, but when you're talking about fighting on the UFC scene, you want to get the best looks as possible. And he's definitely not getting Jared Cannonier up there in Alaska anytime soon. So he's definitely going to be coming down to King's MMA, getting great looks down there. But there's still too many question marks for me to go out there and bet a guy at that minus 160 range who's never been past the 5.5 minute mark in a fight. Alan Cruz, on the other hand, stiff level of competition throughout his 11 fight career. Beat Steve Garcia on the regional scene, who's now in the UFC. I believe he was supposed to go up against our guy Charles Jourdain, but fell ill, I believe. But Alan Cruz, I don't mind what I see from him. Decent distance striking, has a massive 78-inch reach where he's able to keep guys at bay with his jab and his 1-2. His kicks are decent as well. I like what we saw from him in that Steven Nuya fight where he was able to keep him on the outside. Yeah, he was on the back foot for the most part of it, but he did a good job of putting out a lot of output and volume in that fight to keep Nguyen honest. And then obviously we know that highlight reel flying knee that he had in that fight too, which capped off his contract and coming into the UFC. Now, both these guys are seeing changes in their weight classes as well. You got Medic coming down from 170. You got Cruz going up to 155. Not to mention camp changes for both guys as well, right? As I mentioned, Medic going to Kings MMA. You got Alan Cruz going from Tampa Bay all the way to Las Vegas to train under the famed Eric Nixick and Extreme Couture. So I'm very interested to see what kind of game plan they put together to beat a guy like Uros Medic. So just based off of what I know and what I've seen from these guys in the cage, I lean Cruz and that plus money just because it's a little bit juicy to me. We know that he can go 15 minutes, and I think people are overblowing his possible chin issues. Like, he only got knocked out by Spike Carlisle, who packs a punch. Not a great fighter, but still packs a punch. And it all started with that beautiful head kick that he was able to land before that whole finishing sequence. Now, is Medic going to have that same type of knockout power? I'm not 100% sure, because the opponents that he fought just didn't seem to want to be in there. So if he goes out there and hits Alan Cruz, and Alan Cruz just stares at him like, that's all you got? I think Medic is going to be in some issues. So the spot that I like here is Medic actually even to win this fight via decision. I think this fight gets dragged on. Even the over 1.5 at -135, I think is a solid prop spot here. But in terms of picking a specific win condition, I like Cruz to win by decision at +320. I don't mind a stab there. How are you seeing this one?
I don't really like this fight from a betting standpoint, especially anymore. Euros actually opened up at a +105 underdog. At that point, it's like, yeah, baby, dog or pass. But now you see the money coming in on a -116. Where is it warranted? It's warranted in that he's left Alaska. He already looked okay, but guys over there look phenomenally good and then come over and get exposed. So you need to see more from him. But at least he's left there, gone to Kings MMA. You named, the Beneil Dariush's and the Kelvin Gaslams and the Marvin Vittori's, and like, he's getting work in with an elite level, but he's also managed by Ali Abdelaziz, who doesn't just take on any client. So clearly they see something in him. He's 26 years old. And here's a guy that actually made his pro debut at 185 pounds, right? Moves down to 170. Then on the Contender Series, he shows up at 55. Dude's 6'1", he's a big, solid, thick guy. And yeah, he gives a good account of himself. Now, it was a weird fight in the Contender Series because his opponent literally just went out there and threw a bunch of spinning techniques, and he had a karate style and kind of just tired himself out. Poor ring IQ. Euros takes advantage. I want to see Euros go rounds. I want to see what this guy's cardio looks like. I want to see him tested a little bit. And so far, you just haven't seen that. I mean, he finishes a lot of his fights early in the first round. He's got a couple of wins by triangle choke. I don't love that because it's like, why are you spending time on your back in Alaska FC? This should be a walk in the park. Don't be. But regardless, he's looked very good in those fights. It's like, how does it translate? So now trying to bet him straight up as a -160 on this card, yeah, like the line's no longer there anymore. It's just, we don't know enough about him. If he goes to the second round, is he going to tire? If he gets hit clean, is he not going to like it? With Elon, you mentioned this yourself. Elon's got some fights, man. He fought guys like Steve Garcia. He's fought guys like Damon Blackshear. He's gone to a decision, right? That's all stuff that Euros has never experienced. Actually, his loss to Damon Blackshear is in the 4th round. So he's experienced to an extent championship rounds. Like, he's been later. As far as his frame goes, bro, he's 6'1" with the 78 inches. These are the two biggest lightweights we've seen. The crazy thing is that Elon's coming up from 45. So he was definitely the biggest 45er. And now he actually figures to be the smaller man against Euros, right? So he's giving up an inch in the height. He's got the reach still, no doubt about it. But he does like to fight off his back foot. He does like to let his opponent dictate the pace a little bit and land that shot. I have a worry that Euros is just going to come forward on him, try to bully him a bit. Spike Carlisle, who's a very big, thick 45er, he was able to just push him back, control him, and then obviously land that shot. Beyond that, I think Euros will just have more success backing him up, but I don't know enough about Euros to confidently say that. Now, when I look at this fight from a prop standpoint, I think if Euros is going to win, it's going to be inside the distance. Elon Cruz has had 3 losses, all 3 of them inside the distance. He's been finished twice, once knocked out in the first round, submitted in the first round, and he has that 4th round submission to Damon Blackshear. Yeah. So with Euros, I mean, he shows a mixture of knockouts and submissions as well. He can get it done both ways. I think if you want to improve that -160 line, you would look at Euros inside the distance, which is -110. But again, I don't feel super confident in it. But if I wanted like a little bit of a punt play, Euros by submission is 10-1. It's plus 1,000, right? Yeah. So again, this is a guy that does have submissions. A triangle choke is not a fluke submission. You have to set it up. So he's probably not super lost. He's in Kings MMA. He's training with a 55er like Beneil Dariush, getting ready for Carlos Diego Ferreira. So these guys are rolling and grappling. Ali, who pretty much exclusively represents grapplers, is the guy's manager. And Elon Cruz has been submitted in 2 of his 3 pro losses. So it's like, shit, 10-1. Like, why not? But again, we don't know enough about this guy to be confident in that. But it it looked like a why not play, like a too big of a line.
For sure. There's a lot of question marks regarding this fight, so I don't bang on anybody that wants to skip this fight, considering we have 14 other fights to bet on too. So let's try to keep our degenerate side in check a little bit. One thing I do want to touch on before moving on to the next fight, if we see any fake news rumors about fights being off, that is the quickest way to catch a block on this channel. I'll let you guys know right off the bat. Don't be bringing that negative energy in here regarding fake fight cancellations. I almost dropped my heart thinking that Rakic and Santos is off, but it's not. So that's a warning to any of you trolls out there. You put fake news out there, you're getting blocked. All right, let's get this thing moving along. Next fight up, we got Souza against Amanda Lemos. We got another heavy favorite here, and Amanda Lemos coming in at minus 235, I believe her line is at, and plus 195 on Souza. Now, since we've seen Lemos come back after her beating to Leslie Smith, which is probably not the best thing to have on your record at that point in time, she's looked pretty damn good. At 115, she drops 2 weight classes. She goes from 135 down to 115 now. She submits Miranda Granger with a weird rear naked choke where it didn't even seem like Granger was expecting to get put out by that, because she just went absolutely stiff. She didn't even get a chance to tap out. And then her next fight, she does a good job of keeping the fight on the feet against Mizuki anyway. And whenever the fight was at distance, she was able to get some damage off, get her strikes off, and pretty much win that fight, even though she was being controlled for a better part of that fight up against the cage. Now, Souza seems like a girl that is more so dependent on getting this fight to the ground, using her jiu-jitsu, getting some top pressure, and I don't expect her to have the striking advantage here against Lemos. Another thing I find about Souza is that she seems to slow down later in fights. You watch that Sarah Frota fight, she's pulling guard within a minute of that round, and that's not what you want to be doing in a super close fight. She eventually won that fight via split decision, but it was razor thin, and you don't like seeing a fighter pull guard who's huffing and puffing a little bit. Even giving up her last fight to Yoder in that third round. She gives up that third round. She wins the first 2 rounds, luckily enough for her, but that third round was not nice at all. We saw Yoder keep her at distance, and Yoder isn't really the greatest at using her distance to the best of its ability. So if she's getting her strikes off, imagine what Amanda Lemos is going to be able to do on the feet here against Souza. So the spot that I like, and I like my round props, I think this one is a live spot for that round 3 prop, which is around that plus 1375 line. I think I like Lemos to survive those first 2 rounds, and not just survive. I'm making it sound like she's going to get absolutely mollywopped in those first 2 rounds. She might give up that first round if Souza is able to get the fight to the ground. But then I think we'll see the tide start to turn. She takes over in round 2, and then round 3, I think we see her put it on her a little bit more. So maybe the KO, which is plus 550. And then the round 3 plus 1375. That's the angle that I'm going with here. How do you see this one?
Yeah, okay, so again, when you look at a 15-fight offering and there's a couple spots that you wouldn't mind passing on, this one's the other one that absolutely screams that. You've got a closely contested fight, and you got one where the lines just flip completely, right? So if you actually look at the opener on that, Amanda Lemos opens at plus 165. Plus 165, and she's now currently sitting at minus 250.
Yeah.
Like, that is a tremendous amount. Even if it was a soft opener or not, that's a lot of money that's come in on her way. So have people seen something? No, you haven't seen anything. It's just you're writing off Souza. And I to a certain extent, I agree, because I was a huge Souza fan coming in from Invicta. This is a girl that's a former world champion in Invicta. And, man, she's got skills everywhere. She's a judo black belt. She's a high-level Brazilian national team wrestler. She's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. And her striking, work in progress, but nice body kick, nice 1-2. Fights strong for the division, even though she's only 115 pounds, like strong, good chin. Cardio leaves something to be desired. But again, you see her go 5 rounds with Angela Hill. It's like, yeah, this is my girl. I like her. Comes to the UFC, they give her a layup with Alex Chambers. Okay, cool. This is expected.
Minus 1,500 favorite.
That's what I mean. Like, expected is understated. What was expected is only lasted a minute 26. Like, you can't go any longer than that when you're this big of a favorite. And she goes out there and she cuts right to her. Now, the second fight, you get Sarah Frota. And Sarah Frota missed weight by 7 pounds, right? Yeah. She came in massively over the limit, 123, and she did not look good in that fight. But again, I'm giving her a pass. Well, she didn't look good because Sarah Frota was so big and missed weight and this and that. And then you get that Brianna Van Buren fight, where it's like Brianna Van Buren's pretty green, very inexperienced. It's not fought to the levels of Souza. Hasn't won a world title like Souza. Doesn't have the wrestling and the judo and the BJJ, all of that. But she just stood her up. And as soon as she stood her up, you see with Souza, there is no plan B. She can't rely on her striking because she's just not comfortable striking. At points, it'll look like, oh, there's that body kick. There's that 1-2. But when you're not out striking Ashley Yoder, like she's controlling the distance in the fight, that's a big problem. Brianna Van Buren is a good striker, so when she wasn't able to get that fight to the ground, she gets pieced up. But now you're seeing this issue with her where it's like she's kind of live or die by the takedown. And the Sarah Frota fight was no different. She won the fight on the basis of getting this thing to the ground. And even then, when Frodo was on top, she was ground and pounding the shit out of her. But with Souza, it's just like she perseveres, she gets through. So she's young, she's athletic. There's no reason to believe that she couldn't put it all together. And now that the lines flip so much, she would be considered a live dog in the spot. Lemos is 33, looked awful in her debut against Leslie Smith, but again, up 2 weight classes. And here's the thing. We've seen a lot of Brazilian fighters lose their debut, not look good, especially in the women's division, take a year off and then come back and changed, like, who knows what's changed, but they've looked a lot better. That's been the case on Amanda Lemos. Since she's come back, she's fought really low-level competition, but she's looked pretty good. So how does this fight play out? Well, honestly, I like Lemos' takedown defense. I think it's pretty solid. So she goes out there and stuffs the takedown. Then what do we got? We got Lemos boxing her up because everybody else that's been able to keep this fight standing boxes her up. You make a good point. Maybe Souza goes out there and wins the first round. Yeah, probably on the basis of the takedown. But rounds 2 or 3, Lemos, again, just keep this fight standing, tire her out a little bit, and box her up. And so I don't have a huge interest on this, but as far as a prop goes, if I had to bet one, I got fight goes the distance, but it's minus 240,
Yeah.
If you want to chase something better than that, you're one of those people that doesn't like betting that type of price, especially in an MMA fight, which I get. I like overs, but I get it. Then I would chase that Lemos by decision. But again, this is a closely contested fight. The line doesn't really suggest that anymore, but it's a closely contested fight on an absolutely star-studded card. And please God, no fights do get canceled. But if one did get canceled, like if you had to name one, okay, I'll sacrifice one of the MMA gods to keep the rest intact. Like this would be it. So maybe just enjoy this one. But we got to give out a pick. We got to give a prop. So I would go Lemos by decision or overall fight goes the distance minus 240.
I'm right there with you in terms of if we had to lose a fight, this will probably be the one. But still, I wouldn't mind catching that possible round 3 prop here on Miss Amanda Lemos. All right, let's keep things moving along. We got a next one coming up here with Sean Brady against Jake Matthews. We got minus 210 on Brady. I believe he opened up very, very high. I think he opened up at minus 310. He opened up. We got a bunch of money coming on him, Jake Matthews, to now push him down to plus 175. But I think the odds makers had it right. I think that Sean Brady has Jake Matthews pretty much covered everywhere in this fight. Wherever Jake Matthews is good, I think Sean Brady is just better. The only thing that Jake Matthews truly has on him here is UFC experience. The kid's been in the UFC for 7 years now. It feels like forever since he's been in the game. And I felt like I was coming at I found an angle that not a lot of people had picked up on. And then I just skimmed through your Dogger Pass episode the other day, and you picked up on it as well too. The guy's only fought in the US once, and he got absolutely mollywopped by Kevin Lee. Now, I'm not saying that Sean Brady is Kevin Lee by any means here, but it just, that statistically, that's hilarious that the UFC only lets this guy fight in Australia or New Zealand or that one time in Singapore where he was able to get a layup in Shinsho Anzai. But here, this is a tough matchup against Brady. I think Brady, better combinations, likes to be the one moving forward, whereas Jake Matthews always is on his back foot, waiting to kind of explode and land that 1-2 or just a big bomb to try to potentially knock down his opponent, just like he did in the Li Jingliang fight, right? Like Lee was pretty much controlling that fight up until any time that Matthews was able to land a big enough bomb to rock him and then do some good work from on top. Obviously, good wrestling from Matthews, but he doesn't seem to have the greatest top pressure. And I think he's going to struggle to keep a guy down like Sean Brady, who's a high-level jiu-jitsu or a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Now, Brady, another thing that I like that he brings to the table is that low kick. And that's something we saw Anthony Rocco Martin very successful with against Jake Matthews as well. So I think if he's able to implement that right off the bat, he's going to kind of have Matthews covered here. I think there's a potential for a submission as well, too, for Sean Brady, who obviously we saw him go out there and submit Christian Aguilera last time around. But again, Aguilera, as much as seems like I'm shitting on Jake Matthews here, he'll definitely beat the brakes off of Christian Aguilera. But 3 of Jake Matthews' losses have come on the ground. 2 of them via submission, 1 of them via ground and pound from Kevin Lee. And then the other one, he lost via split decision to Andrew Holbrook, who is a solid jiu-jitsu player in his own right. But I think that Sean Brady has that little bit more of a knack to go for the finish and try to, find a submission. I believe he's more position over submission, but if a submission presents itself, I think he's going to be going for it. Now, I think he has Matthews covered pretty much everywhere in this fight. The only way I see Matthews truly winning this is if, Brady truly has nothing off of his back, but I find that hard to believe. And also if he just flash knocks him out, which I find hard to believe as well too. This Brady kid is a winner, right? 13-0 in his pro career, 4-0 on the amateur scene as well, 17-0 altogether. The kid's good. I think he has a high ceiling, and I think this is a perfectly matched up fight for him. So I like Brady here. I like him a lot. I already have a bet on him around that minus 195 mark, and it seems like we might be sticking around that minus 200, given some of the love that we've been seeing from the public on Jake Matthews here. But I'm on Brady. I like him possibly by submission. I don't mind the decision line either. But you know me. I like chasing those higher numbered props here. So if you give me, I believe it was like plus 400-ish on Brady to win this fight via submission, plus 410 to be exact. I don't mind that. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, I'm in on the Brady punch as well. I mean, I think he goes out there. I like the guy. Comes to the UFC, undefeated, like you said, born winner, but already got school, already got tools, already refined, already a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And that's not even his go-to skill. Like, he's a comfortable striker, good counter puncher, good pressure, good power, looks good on the regional scene. And a regional scene isn't just a regional scene, right? You can fight out of, you can be out of the Indiana regional scene. You could be out of the Florida regional scene. You could be out of the Michigan regional scene. The New Jersey regional scene is death row, man. Yeah. Tough scene.
Ring of Combat.
Is a very CFFC, like they don't, our Canadian guys are taking those fights in CFFC. I don't like any of them. No. I honestly don't like any of these fights. They're tough matchups. They give you no layups. You come out of there, even guys like Brian Kelleher, right? They're Ring of Combat guys. Motherfucker had to beat Julio Arce twice and have like 30 pro fights before he gets signed. Like, these guys are battle tested. So they come to the UFC and it's like, oh, they sprung an upset. It's like, it shouldn't be an upset. They have good skills. So he makes this debut, and like you said, what's one thing he's given up against Jake Matthews? Experience. Like, dude debuted against Court McGee.
Yeah.
He debuted against a guy that already had 15 UFC fights, was an Ultimate Fighter champion, had been through the ringer, had fought in some good guys, and he knocks Court McGee down. He lands like 116 significant strikes. He just bombs on him, and he does get tired. But it's the first time ever where it's like he's got to go to these deep waters and push him. All Court did was push him the way Court's pushed a lot of guys. But Brady showed right in that UFC debut, despite it's a decision win, despite it wasn't like the cleanest win ever, it was just like, this guy's got something here. Like, he'll develop. And you've seen that since then. There's a development there. He's getting more comfortable, and he's already got these skills. He's just adding more experience under his belt. They haven't exactly matched him up super tough, but I mean, he's just gone out there and exceedingly gone out and beat expectations, let's say. The Christian Aguilera fight, everyone thinks he's going to go out there and beat him. He goes out there, he gets a submission, but again, he looked clean and precise the whole way. And I was big on Brady inside the distance on that fight, because here's a guy that's coming off 2 decision victories, but is a potent finisher. You've seen him hurt Court McGee, who very few people have ever managed to do. You see the submission, you see the game, you see, the well-roundedness. But this is a fight, I think it goes back the other direction. I can see Jake Matthews is a guy, has his chin's pretty good for the most part, although it hasn't been tested a whole lot. His ground game, he is a BJJ black belt as well. He's a big enough guy, not as big as he was at 55, but, likes to slow down the pace, likes to make it a grappling affair. Like, I could see this fight ticking in some overs and going the distance. I got Brady winning. I like Sean Brady. But again, Brady by decision is plus 140, and I like that. We've got a guy that's 3-0 in the UFC. 2 of said fights have gone the distance. And a guy in Jake Matthews that, he's flopped around, and we've been watching this kid since he's 19 years old, debuted in the UFC at 19 and
2014. Crazy.
Yeah. And here's the craziest thing about it. You look at it and it's like, oh, okay, well, he's still a prospect. It's like his losses are to James Vick, Kevin Lee, Andrew Holbrook, and Anthony Rocco Martin, right? 3 of those guys no longer with the promotion. All 4 times, Kevin Lee fight included, he's the favorite. This kid's always been the favorite. He's never an underdog. You love him, but then you watch the Rostam Akhman fight, and it's like he loses the second round against him. Like, it's not a very good fight. Yeah. You go back and you watch, obviously the Anthony or the Rocco Martin fights, not a very good performance for him, but they match him up against the Emil Weber Meeks of the world, where he'll have a clear wrestling advantage, grappling advantage. Diego Sanchez, a shell of Diego Sanchez. He'll have these advantages. They give him those guys, he has these advantages. You give him Sean Brady, where's the advantage? You're going to take this guy down? Good luck. If you do take him down, he's not out of the water. Like, he's not out of his domain at all. He's a very good grappler. He's good at scrambling. He's good at get back up. His cardio is good. But the advantage that'll win him the fight is the striking. Yeah. We see that Jake Matthews has never really been a comfortable striker. He is more and more of these grappling type guys. And with Brady, if he can match him with that fire for fire, keep this fight standing, it should be Brady. Brady with the leg kicks, Brady with the hooks, Brady just a more polished, well-refined striker. I like that money's coming in on Jake Matthews just because it makes this line a lot easier to bet. But it does seem, and Brady, a guy 17-0 for a reason. He'll fight for your dollar, He reminds me of a Shane Burgos with a better chin. Like, he is super well-rounded, but it's like he could be down 2 rounds. He'll go for it. He'll try to find a way to win. And with Jake Matthews, the only way he goes up 2 rounds is lay and pray. He's just got to grind on this guy and try to take him down. And at 170, that's going to be way easier than it was for Jake Matthews in the past. So, in on Brady, but I'm going to go Brady by decision instead of that inside the distance. Our boy Almac in the chat, and I really like this guy, and he's always got great stats, and I know he's feeling the inside the distance, but I honestly think Brady just goes out there, wins at least 2 of these 3 rounds, makes it look somewhat comfortable, but gets that decision victory, plus 140.
One quick thing I do want to touch on as well is the Ishmael Nordiev fight, right? We see Brady go down in that first round in terms of losing that round, but then comes back in that second and third and absolutely outgrinds Nordiev in that fight. Just shows his resiliency and the fact that he just stays on course, doesn't let a round that he dropped get him down. He just goes out there, does what he needs to do, and gets the job done. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say to Cam and Ryder as well with the question, saying Jake Matthews is a good wrestler. So the thing we consider with Jake Matthews, one, being out of Australia and New Zealand, he's never left the compounds of his own gym. His dad is his head coach, who's a grappler. And you look at literally his entire record. Diego Sanchez, no longer a wrestler, right? Emil Meek, not a wrestler. Rosser Mackman, not a wrestler. Anthony Rocco Martin, not a wrestler. Shinzo Anzai is, but we all know Shinzo Anzai.
Yeah.
Jing Liang Li, banger. Boyan, well-rounded, not a wrestler. Andrew Holbrook was. He lost that fight, by the way. Kevin Lee was. He got knocked out in the first round in that fight, by the way. Johnny Case, not a wrestler. Akbar Theriola, Mexican boxer who head kicked Jake Matthews, almost put him down. James Vick, former pro boxer. Wagner Roca, that's a dope win. You submitted Wagner Roca.
Yeah, that was impressive. I'll give
but that was like Wagner Roca trying to do MMA. Like when he just does BJJ, he's on another level. MMA, it's kind of like, we've seen high-level BJJ guys not do so well in MMA. But sorry, just to answer his question really quickly, just because you're scoring takedowns in fights, just because you're out grappling guys, you always got to look at can that guy wrestle? Can that guy grapple? Jake Matthews has done a really good job of winning 10 fights in the UFC against non-wrestlers. His 4 losses have largely come to guys that he just couldn't take down and control. So that being off the table is why I would take Sean Brady. But sorry to interrupt you like that, man.
No worries. It's all good. I'm glad that you input those nuggets. We definitely need that. And I'm sure the chat appreciates as well, too. One thing I would appreciate is what my guy Almac is saying here. Ground and pound that like button. That definitely helps us out. And make sure you guys show your support that way as well. All right, let's keep things moving along. We got the debuting Carlos Ulberg, I believe a City Kickboxing product there, going up against Kennedy Nzechukwu, who we haven't seen in a long time. I believe the last time we saw him was on the Colby Covington and Robbie Lawler card in August of 2019. So he's taken a long time off. Comes back now. Fortis MMA product himself too. But seems like that guy will always rely on his athleticism, his power, and his strength, and it's only going to get him so far. I think Carlos Ulberg is perfectly matched up here, where, if this fight stays that distance, Ulberg should be able to light him up. I'm not sure if he'll finish him. I think that Kennedy might try to play it a little bit safer, but one thing I do want to allude to here is I saw an interview recently from Eugene Behrman, where he talks about, and you know this as well too, you've probably seen it on the inside workings as well, is that the UFC has 2 categories of guys, right? They got cannon fodder, and then they got guys that are championship material. And which way the UFC is leaning in terms of those categories when they email you and let you know, these are the guys, either we're going to give you a list of 5 guys that we want your guy to go up against, or we're going to give you one name because this is the guy that we sent 5 names to and he chose your fighter. And that's what they're doing with Carlos Ulberg here. Apparently they gave him a list of 5 guys. They chose Kennedy and Nzechukwu, and they see a reason to go out there and beat this guy. Now, I can't back this guy at minus 250. Yeah, he should go out there and win, but you're talking about a guy with 3 pro fights. Some places I'm seeing he has 5 fights. Where are these 2 magical fights coming from? Tapology and Sherdog say 3 fights. That's my holy Bible. I'm not going by MMA.tv. I know you have your experience with MMA.tv and how easy it is to get your record up on there. But, if it's not on Tapology, if it's not on Sherdog, the guy has 3 fights. Let's get that first and foremost. Let's get that straight first and foremost. So 3 fights. All those 3 fights, there's nothing we can truly extract from him from an MMA perspective. The first fight 10 years ago against the guy who gassed in 2 minutes and couldn't answer the bell for the second round. Then the second fight, the guy does nothing in terms of trying to close the distance and make this an MMA fight, allowing Ulberg to truly just get his striking off for 15 minutes, goes out there and outstrikes this guy, gets the judge's decision. Then the Bruno Oliveira fight. That's the one fight we see a little bit more, where we see Oliveira being the one kind of pushing the pace, moving forward, landing his combinations, but then he gets a little bit too sloppy on one of the entries and gets knocked out for that and slipping up on his entry there. Now with Kennedy Nzechukwu, he doesn't really strike me as a guy that's going to go out there and try to grapple this guy here and drag him to the ground and make this a dirty fight. That's not what we've seen from Kennedy. Kennedy is that distance striker. He uses his long reach, his lanky frame to keep guys on the outside, kick up the middle, jab on the outside. But technically speaking, he's really not that great. Like I said at the top of this breakdown, he leans too much on that athleticism and his strength and his power and all that stuff. Now, I feel like a guy like Saif Sayoud is salivating at the mouth to go out there and give Carlos Ulberg that first loss, saying that, okay, this guy's probably just a one-dimensional kickboxer. How can we exploit that? And that reason alone is kind of enough for me to just stay away the hell from this fight. Like, it seems like a perfect stylistic matchup for Ulberg here, but it could turn into a not like a staring contest, but at least a fight where we see Ulberg just soundly outstrike him from the outside, maybe not overcommit too much to potentially give up a takedown or something. So the spot that I like here the most is, first of all, the over 1.5, -165. I think that's a solid spot. And then Ulberg to win via decision as well, which is +240. I think that's a solid spot. But I'm not laying -250 on a guy that only has 3 fights. And, the biggest claim to fame that he has is that he's Israel Adesanya's training partner. That shows me nothing in terms of the MMA world. So until we see that in the cage, I'm not laying -250 on this guy. I think the approach would potentially be the decision. That all depends on how Kennedy approaches this fight. How do you see this one?
Yeah, well, it depends what version of Kennedy comes out, because on one hand, it's like, yeah, he's outmatched here. It's crazy to think he's outmatched here. He's taking on a guy that is 3-0, by the way. I've seen this time and time again with the UFC. 3-0 doesn't look all that good, so they'll bump it to 5-0. And you'll notice it a lot with people that fought in the Ultimate Fighter. They'll give you your exhibition wins to make it look a little bit better. Hey, he's not 14-2. He's 16-2. He's 17-2. Yeah. It's like, well, where do those wins come? Oh, from the Ultimate Fighter. It's like, those weren't pro wins. They're exhibitions. Some of them are 2-round fights. But they got to wait. Listen, they know what they got in Carlos Ulberg. The guy's a male model. He looks the part. You see him on the Contender Series, like Laura Senko's having hot flashes talking to the guy. But he's 30 years old, right? Training partner of Israel Adesanya, out of city kickboxing. He's got all the cool variables of, like, this guy could be a big star. But he's 30 years old. He spent a lot of time, kickboxing. So you need to hurry this guy along. And the way you hurry this guy along is you get him some big-ish fights. And Nzechukwu is that. He's more experienced. He does have a bit of a name. He's a 2-fight UFC veteran and got a contract on the Contender Series. Fought there a couple times. He's familiar to some portion of the audience. But he can't wrestle. He doesn't wrestle. He's never attempted to wrestle. He shows a 0% takedown accuracy because he just doesn't shoot takedowns. If anything, he just wants you to not take him down, keep this fight standing and outstrike you. But he's just super green, he makes a lot of mistakes. Fundamentally, he's just not very sound. And I think because he's got such long length and height of the division, he's just awkward putting it together. You see with Stefan Struve, it's like, oh, dude, 7 feet tall, watch out. And it's like, why doesn't he jab? Like, why doesn't he stay to the outside? But it's like, you're so long, you're trying to figure it out. And we all went to elementary school and high school with those kids that were like way taller and ganglier, and like they sucked at sports because it's like they haven't figured it out. And then later on in life, it's like dude's a wrecking machine, like could go out and compete. Like they just take longer to fill out. My one worry with Kenny Nzechukwu is when we did see this guy, yeah, super green, not all that good. He loses this fight. But you're a big Safe Sayoud guy. You're a big Fortis MMA guy. So let's say I told you I'm going to send you a guy. He's 26 years old, right? He's already fought twice in the UFC. He's got some experience. He actually won his last fight, but it wasn't all that good. He's 6'5". He has an 83-inch reach. He's still young. You send him in, and now he hasn't fought in like a year and a half since the Darko fight. So on a theoretical level, this guy could have made a lot of improvements, man. And if he was able to put a good game plan together and make those improvements, he's got all the variables to be a decent fighter. Unfortunately, I don't think he's made any improvements to his wrestling, or at least not to the level that he's going to go out there and continuously take Carlos down. So we got a striking battle. And a year and a half is just not long enough to figure out what a 30-year-old man's been doing his entire life. This is a guy that has fought in one-night tournaments where he's fought 3 different opponents and finishes them all, like finds a way to tailor-made a game plan to all these guys. He's on the same card as the Israel Adesanya. Oh, they're both 205 pounds. Well, then who do you think's been his chief training partner in this entire camp, right? I just think that they're getting a lot of good looks. And Jan might want to take down Israel. So they've brought in good grapplers. They've brought in wrestlers. This guy's going to benefit. See, I've always said, right, if you're training in camp with a champion, you benefit from the guys he brings in. If you're Conor McGregor and you're you're a Paddy Holohan, you're some guy in SPG Ireland, you benefit from him bringing in a multiple-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion. You benefit from him bringing in Jordan Burroughs. You benefit from him bringing in, because you're in the room with these guys. You learn, it's like free seminars, and he'll bring them in for a month. So I do feel like Carlos has had the benefit of, yeah, he is, he's in the same camp, but I think he's got the kickboxing skills that if you give him a kickboxer, he'll be okay. And if they gave him Marcin Prachnio next time out, I think he'd be okay. And if they gave him Khalil Roundtree next time out, I think he'd be okay. And if they gave him Darko Stosic, not exactly a ranked contender. I think it could be a fucking problem. But it's like we don't need to see that problem quite yet. Now, the $1 million question is, does Carlos take him out? Does the fight go the distance? Kennedy's never been knocked out. He did get submitted in the Paul Craig fight, but his cardio looked awful, man. Like, he was huffing and puffing. One would think that a striker that has him that tired on the feet would probably topple him over and put him out. I really do get the impression that Carlos is live for that inside the distance, plus 110. He ain't going to submit him. So you don't take inside the distance. You take the TKO prop, plus 135. But honestly, I could see the fight going the distance as well. Low output, stay to the outside. Dude, 6'5". What do you want me to do? Bum rush him? Like, no. I'm going to stay to the outside. I'm going to leg kick him. I'm going to slow him down. I'm going to win this fight. And then it's 240 with that Ulberg by decision. So, like, that's super tempting. But I feel like I don't know. I got Ulberg inside the distance. I'm pretty sure you're going to go with the TKO to juice up that prop a little bit better. But I don't know if it's something I want to bet on. Like, you got a guy making his debut officially against a guy that, I don't know. They're both green. It could play at a little lower level than we'd expect. I do got Ulberg. The line's not great. The prop, you're talking me a bit off that inside the distance. It could just be a sparring match type of affair. But with Ulberg as well, right? You pick at Kennedy, right? I send you a list of 5 names. You pick a guy. You'd better go out there and put on a show against that guy. You don't go out there and grease a decision from the out. Well, dude, he's so tall. You fucking picked to fight this guy. What are you talking about, right? Yeah. So bring in guys that are 6'5" and do the damn thing on them in the gym. Get ready. Use the light kicks, use the effectiveness. He'll probably have to go out there, put on a show. 30 years old, move yourself into talks. He's not going to fight for a title anytime soon, especially if Izzy is the champ. But again, he can just have these fun fights at 205 and build himself up. This is a good start. So, yeah, I've probably left myself more confused whether with a prop, with an actual prop in this fight. I'll just stick to Ulberg by knockout, plus 135. But I could see your prop as well at 240. And yeah, I don't know. You could maybe just bet both. They're both plus money. You could come out on. Remember last week we said the Pedro Munoz, Jimmy Rivera? If you put $100 on Jimmy Rivera by decision, the worst you can do is break even if he loses. If he wins, doesn't matter. If Pedro happens to hit, it's plus 310. So if Pedro wins, you're making $210. If Jimmy wins, you break even. How do you lose? Yeah. And then, stupid us, I guess. Like we talked about how Pedro could probably go out there and do exactly this. He does. It's MMA. It happens. This is an LA spots. Like if you bet Carlos inside the distance and Carlos by decision, all Carlos needs to do is win, right? And if he wins, you're not paying that 240. You're getting the plus money tag both sides. You're hoping for the decision because it's better, but you wouldn't lose money either side.
That devil's advocate that you brought out for that Pedro Munoz, Jimmy Rivera breakdown. Let's keep him in the closet tonight. All right. Let's not try to fuck ourselves over again. All right. Let's keep this thing moving along. Next up, we got Tim Elliott versus Jordan Espinosa. I'm having a little bit of a harder time kind of breaking this one down. I do like the Tim Elliott side right off the bat. I like his movement. He's a little Jekyll and Hyde with his cardio, right? You see him have an absolute cardio dump against Brandon Royval and then get choked out in that second round. But then he comes out the next fight. It looks amazing against Ryan Benoit, continuously moving, having, good output, good volume. Even in the Askarov fight was so upsetting, especially if you're a Tim Elliott backer, right? That third round, marching him down the entire time, talking shit and not throwing anything. And you're just letting Askarov be the one that's dictating the striking. On his back foot, he was outstriking Tim Elliott. Now, this fight seems where if Tim Elliott can get his volume off, start chopping the legs of Jordan Espinosa, start nullifying that quick jab that Espinosa has, who brings it straight from the hip. It's a very sneaky little jab that he was able to pretty much piece up Mark De La Rosa with. But when he's dealing with guys that actually, aren't walking punching bags like Mark De La Rosa, I think he's going to have a little bit harder of a time tracking these guys down. Like David Dvorak had a great game plan in terms of chopping that calf kick right off the bat, immobilizing the movement of Jordan Espinosa, and then letting his hands do the handiwork. Now, seeing Espinosa get tapped by Alex Perez the way that he did, seeing him get tapped by Matt Schnell the way that he did, it leads me to believe that we could potentially see Elliot, who loves searching for chokes, lock something up here. He could absolutely, if we see Espinosa go in on a lazy shot or something like that, I think we could see Elliot potentially snatch up a submission here. I don't have the strongest read on this fight. Again, I am saying Elliot, who is the slight dog here, and even Elliot via sub, which is plus 410. But I'm going to need a little bit more persuading on either side here. How are you seeing this one?
Okay, so with Tim Elliott, he does have all those skills. This is certainly a guy that can go out and win, and the submission looks good. Tim Elliott's attempted 14 submissions in his UFC career.
Insane.
That's someone who's chasing the sub, man. That's if you're going to go after a submission prop, and this is a nice, big, juicy submission prop, Tim Elliott's the kind of guy that is going to attempt some submissions. Flip side to that with Jordan Espinosa, you nailed it, man. This guy has been submitted. He's been submitted in the first round. He does kind of leave his neck out there, and Tim Elliott's got a nasty little guillotine choke on him. It's like, why not create that scramble and get the thing going? But Tim Elliott just seems really shot these days. I mean, you go back to when he was in Las Vegas, partying the whole time. His career kind of takes a downswing. Long gone are the days where he's giving Demetrius Johnson a sticky situation.
Yeah.
Right? Actually, attempted 2 submission attempts on Demetrius Johnson. The GOAT, right? It's like long gone are those days. He's just kind of partying. He links up with Gina Mazzani. They're both in Vegas at the time. His career kind of takes a downturn, not fighting his same. But Tim Elliott, you couldn't tire the guy. That was one thing about him. He had like infinite cardio. And even when he got released from the UFC and he went to Titan FC, he's fighting in 5-round headlines for Titan. This guy just doesn't get tired. And at some point along the way, maybe it's age, maybe it's injuries, maybe it's the partying, maybe it's those times he was going down to Thailand. Like, what was going on there, man? Anyways, his cardio is not quite there anymore. But I think that was all him being in Vegas. He goes back to Glory MMA and Fitness, and you do see him a lot better. You see him linked back up with James Krause. He does look a lot better. But one thing that hasn't really improved is the cardio, right? The Askarov fight, I thought he was actually very competitive till he gassed. Once he gassed, his hands low, walking forward, screaming, but not doing anything. Like,
throwing nothing.
And I didn't really let himself go. So it's like he just looked a little fatigued to me. And then the Brendan Royval fight, it's like, man, he definitely looked fatigued to me. And he ends up getting submitted by an unheralded fighter in Royval. Not the greatest look for him. And then, bam, he's full-time back in Kansas. He brings Gina Mazzani with her. You see how good she looked her last fight. And he goes out there against a very, I shouldn't say a low-level opponent in Ryan Benoit, but certainly a very winnable fight for Tim Elliott. And I had Tim Elliott. I ain't complaining about the 29-28, but damn, that was a close 29-28. And I remember people screaming robbery, and I was like, what are you guys talking about? But I decided to go look at the MMA decisions and be like, well, how'd the media have that one? And it's like 12-4 for Ryan Benoit. So it's like, well, how'd the fans have that one? 57-43, which is such a robbery. You know how Twitter works and robbery.
For sure.
So it's like, okay, I want to rewatch the fight a few times, and you rewatch it, and I still think Elliot won. It's a damn close fight against Ryan Benoit, of all people. Ryan Benoit, a non-ranked contender, hasn't had a great run. That was snapped a 3-fight losing streak. Had he not won that fight against Ryan Benoit, he's on a 4-fight losing streak. Hasn't won since a win over Mark De La Rosa, of all people. No longer with the promotion, very clearly. It's like, yeah, he's not looking that good, man. He's 34 years old. His striking, super unorthodox, super, weird. It's got no power behind it. He fights with his hands down, his chin up. He moves his head side to side, but he's always there to get hit. His wrestling ain't what it used to be. Like, he's not super strong. He can out-grapple. He can submit. No doubt he can beat Jordan Espinosa. The only thing that I like about Jordan Espinosa, he's a state wrestling champion out of New Mexico. I don't even like his wrestling. His striking, goes out there and he landed 123 strikes against Mark De La Rosa. I don't really like his striking. His chin, not a fan. His submission defense, not a fan. His cardio, not a fan. Damn, that boy's fast, man. Yeah. He's fast. He's athletic. He moves extremely nice. And you're starting to see in these later fights now, he's not really using his wrestling all that much. He's just like hitting and moving. And you remember our boy, you remember better than anybody. You guys spent a lot of time together, but you remember Lai Theodoro, right? He started out his career as a wrestler. He wanted to get a hold of you. He wanted to grapple you. He wanted to grind you to the ground. At some point, he got to the UFC, and it was like, wrestling might not be the move, but I'm actually a lot faster than these guys. Don't have a ton of power. I'm just going to touch and go. He was a ranked middleweight when they cut him. They didn't like his style, but he was a ranked middleweight, right? He was beating guys. He had decent wins, had credibility in the UFC. Whether or not you like the style, it was you can win fights that way. And when I look at Espinosa, I think against a caliber guy like this who's going to intimidate, who's a lot slower than you, yeah, he wants to take you down, but your wrestling's good enough to keep this thing standing. Speed, you're going to have a huge speed advantage. He likes to come forward on straight lines with his hands down, his head up. So just touch and move. And at some point, your cardio is not great, but his cardio is not great either. He might get desperate. I honestly do agree with you. The submission prop is juicy. It's live. If people in the comment section are feeling it, I wouldn't disagree with it. But a gun to my head pick on this fight, I think Jordan Espinosa is just too fast. Just stays to the outside, touches him up and moves. Not going to be the prettiest fight out there. Tim Elliott's never been in a boring fight, so it won't be a boring fight, but I could just see the speed and athleticism. Although fighters win fights, not speed and athleticism. I think this is a situation where you might just be able to apply those skills and grease out a decision. So I would go with Espinosa by decision. But again, it's Tim Elliott, right? So expect the unexpected. You said it the best right at the start. We can move on after this, but you said it the best. It's like, does he show up or does he not show up? When he shows up, man, cardio's on point, striking's funky, but he's a poor man's Dominic Cruz. He makes it work for himself. When he doesn't show up, it's like he'd lose to anybody in this division. It's low level. We don't know quite what version is going to show up. You'd expect him to be on point. I can't bank on that. At 34 years old, this stage of his career, could be on a 4-fight losing streak. I think his best days are behind him. So I'm going to go the other way. Jordan Espinosa by decision.
I heard there was a comparison you made between Tim Elliott and Dominic Cruz. You want to bring that to the stream for us, or?
Yeah, well, I said Tim Elliott looks like Dominic Cruz if he just smoked crystal meth. And you see the shitty,
dude.
He's got the shitty tats. He's got the mullet with like the blonde streaks, and just the way he fights, the way he moves. Like there's world championship level, and there's what Tim Elliott got to. But Tim Elliott won a world title in Titan FC. He won the Ultimate Fighter, which it's not a world title by no means, but it's like that's not an easy task. Yeah. He fought the legit GOAT in a competitive fight, won the first round.
Yeah.
When he's at his best, no doubt about it. But 16-11 is a clear reflection that he's not on his best pretty much as he is on his best. So with that, it's always hard to bank him as a favorite. This is a bettable spot. But yeah, again, if you want to pass, this is a fight that there's not a very strong lean on either side. But you know how this show works, man. We want to give everybody, our opinion, a taste, and then that way they can cross-reference it with their notes. Oh, I was feeling it. I was feeling past two. They feel past. It is what it is. That's just our lean on it. But yeah, I mean, Elliott's the tale of two fights. If he shows up, he's going to be a problem. If he doesn't show up, I'm feeling good about this Espinosa bet. But I ain't gonna know if he showed up or not until Saturday. So that'll be the interesting part.
I feel like given that we have 14 submission attempts for Tim Elliott in his UFC career, seeking that plus 400 on his submission prop is not too bad of a line. Apparently, Paul got plus 800 earlier in the week. Great value there. But regardless, plus 400, I think, is a solid spot too. All right, let's go to the next fight, which is, I just noticed this. They got 3 flyweight fights back to back here. So this is the second one. We got Kai Kara-France going up against Rogerio Bontorin. We got, Kai Kara-France always the favorite in his fights. He always gets that rub for some reason. Minus 135 here against Bontorin, who's plus 115. I'm so weirded out by Kai Kara-France, right? Like, he's a decent striker, shows some good speed, has some good power in his hands as well too. But that's really where his game stops. If he's not able to get the rest of his game or that game going, like, he kind of falls into this lull of letting his opponent dictate the pace. Now, his most 2 recent losses, you got the most chaotic fighters at 125 pounds. You got Brandon Moreno, who pretty much boxed his face off and just brought a complete MMA game to him and was able to throw him off his game. Then you got Brandon Royval, who, eats a huge shot from him, comes right back with a spinning back elbow, drops him. One of the most chaotic scenes that we've seen over there on Fight Island, and then eventually gets that finished in the second round with a guillotine choke. Now, with Bontorin, he seems like a guy, high-level jiu-jitsu player as always, but he has some decent striking as well, some good power in his hands. His fight with Raulian Paiva was fun for as long as it lasted. Unfortunately, Paiva gets that disgusting eyebrow or that cut on his eyebrow where you can almost see his skull. The poor guy still wanted to continue fighting. We're like, nah, dude, you're going to lose half your face if this fight continues on. But Bontorin showed some decent discipline in that fight. But then, the Ray Borg fight, I believe he got 30-26 in that fight where we saw Borg get him down over and over and over again. But not to mention, Borg did miss weight for that fight too. But what else is new with Ray Borg, right? Now, Bontorin, greatest performance to date against Magomed Bibulatov. Upsets him in that fight where he came in as I believe a plus 270 or plus 280 underdog. And he did, he showed some good work with his hands, obviously some good work with his jiu-jitsu. But I feel like Kai should be able to keep this fight on the feet. And then the longer this fight stays on the feet, I feel like we'll see him get off on his strikes a little bit more. Now, I'm not the most confident in it, as I'm truly not a huge Kai Kara-France believer here. And I know there's a lot of people on Rogerio Bontorin this week, but I just don't see that angle if this fight stays on the feet for the most part, which I believe it will. I think that Kara-France does a good job of keeping the fight in the striking realm. His speed and his movement does a good enough job in terms of getting away from the big shots of his opponents. And I don't think that Rogerio Bontorin has that chaotic nature about his game that Moreno and Brandon Royval were so successful with going up against a guy like Kara. So I like Kai here. I think he wins this fight via decision. I'd say this is probably my least confident spot, other than the Tim Elliott and Jordan Espinosa fight from earlier. I think this is my least confident spot on the card. But Car France to win by decision is plus 140. I'd need a little bit more juice on or meat on the bone there to truly, take a dive here. But how are you seeing this one?
Yeah, I actually agree with that assessment pretty good here. I think that you've got Rogerio Bontorin. He's got some skills. He has a path to victory here. The guy is a small little powerhouse. He's extremely strong. He's got the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's got good top-heavy pressure. There's a way for him to win the fight. And with Kai Kara France, it's Izzy effect. It's, man, this guy is at the same gym as Israel Adesanya. Oh, my God. But I get it. But when we talked about the MMA lab earlier, it's like, Casey Kinney is in the room with Kyler Phillips, right? He's in the room with Deshaun O'Malley. He's in the room with the Mario Bautista. Kai Kara France also has two teammates on this card, right? Carlos Ulberg and Israel Adesanya. It's like, they ain't getting working together, man. No. These guys are 205ers. He's a flyweight. So, yeah, he benefits from having the jiu-jitsu guy come in. As we talked about earlier, you're bringing in the wrestler, you're bringing in the jiu-jitsu guy. He's getting ready. You're all cutting weight together. Y'all travel together. Y'all stay in the hotel together. That's all a very positive, good experience. I expect Kai Kara. They've been giving him fights in his own backyard, very winnable fights, and he never looks overly great. Either he loses, he costs us some money. He's a guy that, you'd be hard pressed to find someone who hasn't lost money on Kai Kara France. Like, he's always supposed to be a lot better than he is. And even when he does win, they're just not overly impressive. Again, you look at his record, and here's somebody that makes his UFC debut against Elias Garcia, right? The cousin of the Pettis brothers, who never resurfaced, never did anything. He got knocked down in that fight and gave up a takedown, but eventually, gets the win. Okay, decision win. The Rolian Pava fight, man, he robbed Rolian Pava. It's his own. Yeah. Again, this is a fight. It's in his own backyard. He's a minus 240 favorite over Pava, and he relies on a split decision from the judges. Lost that fight. Then he gets the Mark De La Rosa treatment. Actually does get taken down by Mark De La Rosa. But again, beats him by decision. Brandon Moreno, that's very excusable. We're not playing this game there. We were playing the game with Elias Garcia, Rolian Pava, Mark De La Rosa. We're not going to play this game here. Moreno's the man. Tyson Nam, that's not an easy win, but Tyson Nam just doesn't throw shit. And he did the same thing here, right? Tyson Nam does that in all of his fights. He doesn't throw anything. If he hits you clean, you're in trouble, but he waits way too long. And then you rewatch that Tyson Nam fight. It's like, man, he's getting backed up a lot. And quite honestly, if Tyson just threw a little bit more, that's a very interesting fight. It was a close-ish fight, but not a fight that he looked extremely good in. And then the Brandon Royval fight, how does Brandon Royval win this thing? He's got to take you down. Only he didn't. He didn't even attempt to take down. He just put pressure on this guy and battered him up and hurt him. And I would say it's the first time we've seen Kai Kara France get legitimately tired, but you see spots where he slows down all the time, but he got legitimately hurt. We've seen him drop. This time it took some substance out of him. So now everyone's off him. I mean, you can have him for minus 135 against Rogerio Bontorin of all people, but see, Bontorin's got the same story, right? His win over Paiva is bullshit as well. His eye is swollen shut. He's getting boxed up, and he gets the takedown, but Paiva gets back up. It's now Paiva cruise control. Only there's a massive cut on his face from the knee. They check it. They stop the fight. But not a great performance. Ray Borg missed weight, but 10 takedown attempts. It's like, dude, I thought you were the strong guy. I thought you were the takedown irons. I thought you were the BJJ black belt. Borg just absolutely ran amok with them in that department. And then on the Ultimate Fighter, again, the Babulatov fight, he got taken down 4 times and outstruck. But the fight's in Brazil. Right? So he gets the close decision. Like, I'm not super impressed with him. But beyond all that is that Bontorin got booked against Manel Kape, right? Manel Kape signed from Ryzen. It turned out to be a bust, but big money they paid for this guy. Supposed to look good. They want to bring him in. They want a nice fight from him. They match him up with Bontorin, which theoretically is not a great matchup for the guy. The guy's a boxer. The guy wants to keep fights hitting. Bontorin's not a striker. He'll throw an overhand right. He'll throw a few strikes to close that distance and get a hold of you. But Bontorin pulls out of the fight with a broken ankle, and apparently he broke it bad. And that fight was only that injury was like 3 months ago. So now he's coming back here. He hasn't fought in over a year. He's coming off an ankle injury, and he needs to get this fight to the ground. And so the last thing I'll leave you here with is that with Kai Kara France, his takedown defense doesn't appear to be an issue, but these guys aren't really trying to take him down. He did give up takedowns to Elias Garcia and Mark De La Rosa. That's not good. But he gets back up. They're not great takedowns, and one would assume he's made improvements since then. That's a little while ago. But Brandon Moreno, okay, we'll see what his takedown defense like. Didn't even try. And then his last fight, obviously, is the same thing. It's like, hey, Brandon Royval, it's like, no, didn't even try. So, okay, well, what if, on a theoretical level, what if Bontorin goes out there and just powers this guy to the ground? He's going to hold him down. He's going to hold him down. He's going to win the round. Kai Kara-France is a better striker, but if this is not a striking battle, he's in trouble. I'm going to go with the belief that Kai Kara-France does stuff the takedown. Even if he does get taken down, get up, tire this guy a little bit. And then as far as if he can make this a striking battle, he's the better striker. He's more refined. You know, did he struggle against Royval? Yeah. Royval's a badass, right? Did he struggle against Brandon Moreno? Yeah. Brandon Moreno's those are badasses, right? So fighting those guys, you know, even the Rolly and Pava fights, like he's getting boxed up, but he's in it, you know. It's not a robbery because like it's so egregious. It's like he shouldn't have won the fight. It was in his own backyard. But he's in a competitive fighting. It's a good guy. Rolly Pava is a good guy. Rolly Pava versus Bontorin, nah, he was boxing the shit out of him, right? He got clipped with a knee and busted his head open, but outside of that, like he was not hurt in the slightest bit, just happened to have a cut open. So if Kai Kara-France keeps this fight standing, he boxes him up. But again, minus 135, finally you're not getting Kai Kara-France 3-1.
Minus 200.
3.5 to 1. Dude, his prices are always so laughable that outrageous. Finally it's like, okay, I would bet this. But grain of salt, you know, still in the back of my mind, this guy has screwed up a ticket or two in his day already and doesn't usually pull ahead big on these guys. They're going to decision and they're close. So I agreed with your assessment. I would take Kai Kara-France. I would take Kai Kara-France by decision. You're not knocking out Elias Garcia or finishing Garcia. You're not beating Mark De La Rosa inside the distance. This guy's tough, you know, unless he shattered his ankle again during the fight. I see Bontorin hanging around just like he did in the Borg fight. And so you would have a plus money, plus 140 play there by Kai Kara-France by decision. But I would agree. This is one of the closer fights on the card. Money line suggests that. Could go either way. There is a path of victory, an avenue for both guys. Maybe you stay away, but the pick would be Kai Kara-France and chasing that plus money by going by decision.
I think you offended our guy Almac by calling Manel Cape a bust.
So he's not a bust in the sense that, if he threw a few more punches, he wins that fight all day. And now that's not his, you know, it was his debut. Pantoja is a tough fight. I get it. I had Pantoja. I was real happy he opted to not throw anything. But when you sign a guy for big money, like you want them to go out there and do it. I remember Jake Shields. This is why they don't do that anymore. They sign a big guy, they just give him a immediate title fight. They sign Jake Shields and they give him Jake Ellenberger. And like, bro, he didn't want to win that fight, man. No. But they're like, oh shit, give him a George fight. He's a bust. Like, maybe not. With Cap, it's like, dude, he's fighting Pantoja, a ranked flyweight who's already fought the champion. Like, if you go out and knock out Pantoja, and Pantoja had a tooth and nail fight with the current champion Davidson Figueiredo in a great striking battle, and Davidson could knock him out. You know, you write the narrative, you write the story. Oh, sweet! Insert this guy. It'd be striker versus striker. Who doesn't want to see that? But he just didn't throw anything. And by the way, I can hear the I'm a Manel Cap simp. Like I simp for guys that are not talented all the time. Right? So I get it, dude. Why do you like them? I don't know. They're just your boy.
It just happens.
You ride with your boy. I get it. Ride or die. I like that you got his back.
All right, let's move on to the next flyweight fight that we got coming up, and I'm very interested in this one. I don't get the love on one side. So we got Joseph Benavidez coming in against Askarov. Obviously, last time we know Joseph Benavidez came up short twice against Davison Figueiredo. Askarov, on the other hand, I believe his last victory was against Alexandre Pantoja. We looked pretty good. I won't lie about that. But now, the thing about Joseph Benavidez, and we do this in MMA so often, where this guy just has one bad fight and we're just like, fuck this guy. He's washed. He sucks. Let's forget about him. Let's look past the fact that his only ever losses have come against Dominic Cruz, Mighty Mouse Johnson, 2 times to Davison Figueiredo, who's right now running the 125-pound division, and then Sergio Pettis, a very close fight that could have gone Benavidez's way as well, too, and not to mention that he's coming off for a year and a half layoff before going into that fight, too. So Benavidez absolutely doing work on Davison Figueiredo in that first round. And after that headbutt, everything just changes. Now he loses about 5 minutes of fight time. And now everybody wants to completely ditch this guy. And again, against Davison Figueiredo, the 125-pound champion, the scariest man at the lighter weight classes right now. Whereas, you know, the 3 prior fights, he goes out there and beats Alex Perez, coming in as an underdog, goes out there and finishes Alex Perez twice. Thank you, Yves Levine. Then you got, who are the other guys that he beat? He beat, God, why is it not coming off the top of my head right now? Alex Perez, Juicia Formiga knocks him out as well too. That was a big one.
Dustin Ortiz,
and then Dustin Ortiz. Exactly. Dustin Ortiz was the only one that had enough success on the ground in terms of controlling him for 3 minutes. But all those 3 minutes were the hardest 3 minutes of his life in those positions, because you're talking about scramble master himself, Joseph Benavidez. So where does Askarov beat him here? Does he take him down? Sure, he could take him down. Does he keep him down? Hell to the no. There's no way that he's going to be keeping my guy Joseph Benavidez on the ground. Now, Benavidez can be successful on takedowns against Askarov. We've seen Askarov taken down in every single one of his fights in the UFC thus far. So yeah, Benavidez should be able to get him to the ground. And now if this fight is strictly a stand-up fight, where is this narrative that Askarov is this crazy knockout puncher? Oh, he rocked him, Elliot, on the feet once. Oh, watch out, Joseph Benavidez. You're going to get knocked the fuck out by Mr. Askarov, who apparently has heat in his hands. Decent striker, don't get me wrong, and he looks great against Alexandre Pantoja late in their fight, but Pantoja is clearly compromised at that point. His cardio is not the greatest in third rounds, so he's not reacting enough or quickly enough to truly evade the shots of Askarov. So yeah, Askarov looks great, but is Joseph Benavidez going to slow down? Have you ever seen Joseph Benavidez slow down in a fight outside of Deiveson Figueiredo taking his life away? But besides that, you know that Benavidez is always going to give his 100% in every single fight. I think people are reading too far into the narrative of his chin being gone and just, looking too deep into that Deiveson Figueiredo fight. So I like Benavidez here. I think I like him by decision, which is a great line in itself, which I think is around plus 260. But I think he could potentially get the knockout here too. You've seen Askarov getting touched up by Tim Elliott. You see him get touched up by Brandon Moreno. You see him not get knocked down or anything like that, but he is getting a little bit hit up and getting touched up. Whereas Benavidez is going to be the fastest fighter that he's fought to this point in the UFC and shows that this newer age Benavidez that we've been seeing as of late, he throws heat in his hands. Like, he's fast. He starts off with the calf kicks, try to immobilize his opponent that way, and then comes in with his heavy strikes with his hands. And he's going to be faster than Askarov here. I'd be surprised if we see Askarov beat him to the punch. So yeah, I like Benavidez here. I think the KO prop line is not too egregious. I think it's like plus 580 if I'm not mistaken. Plus 580 on Benavidez to win by KO, plus 530 I should say. But yeah, I like Benavidez in this spot. People are just throwing him to the side way too quickly here. Losing to the 125-pound champion twice is not the worst thing in the world. And Askarov, he could turn out to be quite great, but I think this is a very stiff test. This is the toughest test he's had in the UFC, and I think that Benavidez has him covered pretty much everywhere. Now, unless Benavidez's chin truly has fallen off a cliff, I'd be surprised. I don't think that's going to be the case here. And nothing from that we've seen from Askarov leads me to believe that he's going to knock this guy out either. So I got Benavidez. I think the KO is live, but I don't mind that decision prop either at plus 260. How are you seeing this one, dude?
Yeah, I feel you. I got Joseph Benavidez, and I like the Joseph Benavidez by decision on plus 260. I mean, we can jump into it a lot more in depth on tomorrow night's show, but as far as the prop goes, Joseph Benavidez, man, if you told me I got a 36-year-old flyweight for you, you'd be like, I ain't betting him. But it's like, well, it's Joseph Benavidez. It's like, ooh, you've piqued my interest now. Benavidez is one of these guys, like, he's the ageless wonder of the world. His problem is that he's always been the number 2 guy in the world. It doesn't matter who the number 1 guy in the world is. Benavidez would be the number 2 guy to him, right? When it was Cruz, he was number 2 to him. If it's Demetrius Johnson, he was always number 2 to him. And that is Deiveson Figueiredo. It's like, it's the same thing. He's number 2 to him. He actually has a win over Henry Cejudo. That's as big of a win as it gets. If Henry would have stayed the champion, maybe they could have set up a Benavidez versus Henry Cejudo rematch. Like, maybe that would have gotten him over the line. But I mean, we got a guy that's he's 0-4 in title fights. Like, that kind of writes it up for himself. He can get there. He's like the Kenny Florian of the division. He can get there. It's like he just can't quite get over the hump. But if you give him anybody less than the world champion, man, he goes out there and he's got skills everywhere. As far as being a 36-year-old flyweight, you start to lose your speed, but he's as fast as anybody. That's one thing he's always had. His wrestling is second to none. He can wrestle with all the guys in the division. Think about even takedown defense. You mentioned, well, could he get taken down? We have seen him get taken down. Henry Cejudo went 1 for 7 in takedowns over Joseph Benavidez. Like, Benavidez can wrestle with the best guys. He can strike with the best guys. Where he gets in trouble is striking with the best guys who got some power. And, DJ wasn't really known for his power, more his precision, but it's like, he hits him, he puts him down. Henry actually did drop him, didn't knock him out, but he got hurt in that fight. Deiveson Figueiredo knocked him out twice in the first fight with the headbutt, and then just the nastiest right hand. Like, clearly dude's checking this cut on his face. Yeah. And then,
what's this?
Doesn't remember either of them, right? But that's a double concussion fight. And then his biggest problem, in my opinion, is he took the rematch with Figueiredo 5 months after a double concussion. He wasn't quite ready, and you see in the second fight, he's just a lot shakier. So I enjoy that even though he's a little bit older, he's taken off 8 months after the second knockout loss, recoup, come back into this spot, clear the cobwebs. And then, I think you mentioned it great. It's like, well, where does Askarov's path to victory here? Well, he's gonna outstrike Joseph Benavidez. Like, dude, I don't know about that. He's low output. He's not really a striker for himself. Joseph Benavidez has got much more technical boxing. He's got decent light kicks, but he's got the better pace, right? And he should be able to push forward, outpace this guy. It's like okay, well, Askarov's not really a striker, but he likes to wrestle. It's like, dude, did you not hear about the Henry Cejudo struggle to take this guy down? And again, this is another point that you brought up. Even if you do take him down, holding him down is a completely different animal.
Nope. Yeah.
As far as these ground transitions go, Benavidez is going to have a lot of success. If he scores the takedown over Askarov, he's going to grapple him. But with Askarov, you see in the Brandon Moreno fight and in the Pantoja fight, he's got a knack for giving up his back. He's got a knack for, in these scrambles, giving up a bad spot. And I think Joseph Benavidez can capitalize that. So Benavidez can win on the feet with his boxing. He can win on the ground with better wrestling and just better grappling all around. There's paths there for him. And again, with Askarov, you look at the debut, right? He makes a debut against Brandon Moreno. Tough debut. I'm driving the train. I love Askarov. I watched him fight in Russia. He's got skills everywhere. He's an excellent wrestler, great transitions. He's one of these undefeated, tough, how do you break this guy? The Brandon Moreno fight, I was so unbelievably happy to get that draw, my friend, because he didn't win the fight, right? And again, MMA decision is not everything, but it's really telling when 14 media members scored for Moreno. 5 of them had it 30-27. One guy scored the fight for Askarov. And then the judges' scorecards, again, they make no sense. One guy's got Askarov losing 30-27. He's lost all 3 rounds to Brandon Moreno. The other guy's got him winning 2 rounds and losing the third, so he scores it for him. And the third guy has him winning the first 2 rounds and a 10-8 in the third. A 10-8. So you rewatch the third in particular, and it's like he gives up his back, right? So again, I think Joseph Benavidez could have paths here. People like writing off Joseph Benavidez because it's like, man, that guy's sleeping with Megan O'Leary. Fuck him. like he's easy to hate, right? Fuck, this guy's got it all. But it's like he deserves it, man. He's one of the good guys of the game. He's fought for a very long time. He's been at the highest part of the mountain multiple times and never quite gets there. Everyone would say the saying is always a bridesmaid, never a bride. That really is Joseph Benavidez. But this is what he wants to do. There's nothing in this world that Joseph Benavidez wants to do more than compete. He just wants to go out there and compete. He wants to compete against the best guys. He wants to fight the best guys. And his entire record is fighting the best guys. Askarov, Moreno, that was a very high-level fight. Next time out, winnable spot for him. And then again, against Pantoja, I thought he looked good, but he's low striking output. He does get taken down. He doesn't clearly – he wins the fight. I was happy from that spot. Again, it's another spot I had him betting. But he doesn't like Cruz. So if you want to give me plus money on Joby 1, I'll take it. But then it's like, you know what, Joe, he's only plus 100. Maybe you should just take a pass. But it's like, well, his path to victory, here's the decision. And you mentioned it. We're on the same page. 260. Joseph Benavidez by decision. Oh, man, absolutely. Listen, it's a close fight. We know that. And if Askarov wins, him by decision is no hell of a price. But Joseph Benavidez, they're really juicing you up pretty good here. Is the guillotine live? Man, it's going to be hard to submit Askarov. Is the knockout live? I mean, it's going to be hard to knock out Askarov. So if he is going to get this win, he's going to go out there and put the pace on him. Make it like the Dustin Ortiz fight. Make it like some of these fights where you're just able to grind through on the guy and come out on the other side. I think even though he's 36, 8-month layoff, he should be able to get the job done. And if there's one little thing that I needed, the last little thing that I needed, a close fight, go the decision, go to Joseph Benavidez. Man, he's not an alpha male anymore. He's full-time out of Las Vegas for the last couple of years now. Fights in Las Vegas. He routinely spends a lot of time at the Performance Institute. He's used to the cage. They're flyweights, so small cage, big cage doesn't really matter. But yeah, he's got Megan O'Leary on his side. The judges are going to score it for him. In a close fight, we're going with the old 36-year-old American, fought hard for us, bled for us, wife's a mega babe, instead of this Russian guy with 2 first names coming in. That's what I'm hoping. That's my greasy theory. Is like, even if it is a close fight, just come on, give it to Joseph. But I'm going to agree. I think it's a dog-worthy play. I'll take the dog, and I'm going to go with that plus 260 by Joseph Benavidez by decision.
Apparently, I'm smoking some really good shit to even throw out the fact that Joseph Benavidez can win this fight by knockout. But people are overlooking the fact that this guy has 2 knockouts in his last 3 wins. Like, the guy's throwing heat in his shots. It's not like completely out of the realm of possibility. But yeah, I do believe the most likely outcome here is the decision, and the fact that you're getting plus 260 on it is just an absolutely amazing. Like, I'm trying to remember the last time we could get Benavidez to win by decision at that type of line, like when he's going into fights at these close of odds. So yeah, I do like Benavidez. I might take a little bit of a sprinkle on that KO prop at plus 530. I think it is a little bit live here, but yeah, the safest spot I would say would be the decision. All right, let's move on to the next one. We got Kyler Phillips going up against Song Yadong. I'm very much looking forward to this fight. Very, very fun fight. I believe we have Song Yadong as a very slight favorite here. +1. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the odds here. We got -160 on Song Yadong, +140 on Kyler Phillips. Now, Song Yadong, the forever 22-year-old who's been fighting since he was like 12 years old or something, has 21 fights, a wealth of experience before coming to the UFC. And now he's had a bunch of fights against legitimate competition, right? You got guys against like Cody Stamen, Marlon Vera, even the fact that he knocked out Alejandro Perez, very, very impressive. You're talking about Perez, who has an iron chin, and to see him go down like that was very impressive from a Song Yadong standpoint. The qualm that I'm starting to have is that his cardio seems to take a little bit of a hit the further his fights go on. Now, I don't want to take away from the fact that, the reason his cardio looks a little bit hit in these third rounds is because he's having action-packed first and second rounds. So, yeah, you're obviously going to be huffing him up for a little bit come the third rounds, but he gives up the takedowns a little bit too easily later on those rounds. Does a really good job of getting back to his feet and start throwing some bombs in return. But I like the movement and stuff that we see out of Kyler Phillips here. The guy has a karate type of stance, and the improvements that we've seen from his time on The Ultimate Fighter all the way to now is just like night and day. The guy looks like a completely different fighter, and all these people are super heavy on him now. I think Song Yadong still has a high ceiling. I think that Kyler Phillips is on that fast track too in terms of being a guy that skill set is truly coming together at the right time. We mentioned it earlier in this podcast when we were talking about Mario Bautista, but he's going in there, training side by side with guys that are peaking on the same night as him, fighting at a super high level, not to mention his other training partner in Casey Kenny, who's getting ready for Dominic motherfucking Cruz. Like, you got to believe that, Kyler Phillips is coming in here and knowing that this is a shot to truly start to cement himself in that 135-pound division. I like Kyler here to kind of, play the matador, let Song Yadong move forward, throw his big shots, and maybe we get some good shots on the return from Kyler Phillips, and then mix in that black belt that this guy has. The guy is a wizard on the ground as well. So I like what we see from Kyler. His level of competition hasn't been the greatest as of late, so maybe his skills have been exaggerated a little bit. I'm completely writing off the Cameron Else fight. Like, that guy does not belong in the UFC, probably doesn't even belong in the Alaska FC. Like, that guy was just not good. But his win over Gabriel Silva, quite impressive. And Gabriel Silva came in with that, like a poor man's version of what Song Yadong would be fighting like, which is move forward, throw big shots. And Kyler Phillips was doing a good job of just moving on the outside and getting his shots off, mixing in the takedowns when he needed to. But Song is a bright prospect still. I'm staying away from this fight. I do side ever so slightly with the underdog here, and I do think he wins this fight via decision, which currently is lined at Kyler Phillips by decision is +245. Again, I'd need a little bit better of a price tag there to part ways with my money here, but I do side with Phillips. I feel like I'm crazy for picking against Song here, as I'm very high on him. How are you feeling about this one?
Yeah, so I agree in that it is crazy to bet against Song Yadong, and they're like, man, this guy's going out there and picking up some significant experience. I mean, a win over Marlon Vera, what? The draw with Cody Stamen, who's a fringe top 15 guy. That's big, man. He's only 23 years old, training at Alpha Male now, and making improvements, fighting guys that are top 15, top 10 guys in the division. That's all huge. And he's winning, or at least giving a good account of himself in these fights. But, dude, I'm the guy betting Song Yadong in all these spots, and it ain't easy, man. He lost the Cody Stamen fight for whatever it's worth. He actually got deducted a point in the first round, which should have sealed the loss. The very worst. What's what leads to the draw, but like, he got taken down by Stamen. He was boxing him up standing, but he just gives up these takedowns routinely. He gives up 5 of them against Stamen. And Stamen's a good wrestler, solid wrestler, not an elite level wrestler. Not saying Kyler Phillips is. I'm saying Song Yadong's takedown defense does leave something to the imagination still. The Marlon Vera fight, here's another one where going to the scorecards could go either way, man. It really could. I scored the fight with Song Yadong personally, but he does start to tire out. And what it becomes is Marlon Vera starts marching him down and out landing him. But Song Yadong still, Marlon Vera is not quite respecting him. So he allows Song Yadong to land a couple eye-appealing shots, and the judges go with it. You see all the time. It's like, I don't know. Are they trying to protect the Chinese prospect? Maybe, maybe not. But he's young and he's getting experience and he's fighting elite level guys. It's like he is the favorite in the spot. You probably should go with him. But yeah, with Kyler Phillips, like his wrestling is good. His cardio is good. Those are two weapons that are going to play really good against Song Yadong. As far as the striking goes, that's where Song Yadong does his best work. But Song's really heavy with the technical boxing. He doesn't throw a ton of kicks. He likes to line you up with his punches. So with Kyler Phillips is that he's got good movement and he's quick, but he likes to bounce in and out. If he just tries to play a range game long enough to get the fight to the ground, he could mix it up. I'm worried that if the fight goes to the scorecards and it is close, they're just going to give it to Yadong again, which, again, I could see. But yeah, with Kyler Phillips, earlier in the week, he was +160. That's where I got him. He was +160. I didn't go big on it by no stretch. He's +140 now. A little bit of money's coming in, but Yeah, like I just think it's more of a 50-50 fight. It's more of a dog or pass. With Phillips, you're right. Oh, dude, guy lost to Brad Katona on the Ultimate Fighter. Canada's own Brad Katona, but he's only 22 years old. Oh, he lost his first fight after the Ultimate Fighter on the regional scene. Like, yo, Victor Henry's legit. Like, he's a really good fighter. Well, he's fought in scrubs since then, right? But he's looked exceedingly good against those scrubs. He's still only 25 now, coming back for his second go-around with a Zuffa promote. Zuffa, what am I saying? Not really a company anymore, but with the UFC, like this is the second time getting in there. I know the Ultimate Fighter is not quite the UFC, but they've allowed him to go back to the regional scene, put some experience together, get a little bit older, mature, and now you come back and it's like, okay, we've already talked about the narrative of having two training partners on the card. That should help him. But also when you think about Song Yadong, it's like, again, because he's got a boxing stance, he's a little flat-footed at times. The calf kick theoretically is there. It's right there. So again, if you could stay to the outside, use the calf kick, get this guy to eventually come forward and overcommit to a combination, and then time it and take him down and just try to do that. The Cameron Ellis fight was bullshit for sure, but it's like he didn't look bad for one single second in that fight. He cruised, unbelievably well, but it was a nobody. Okay, his other fights, well, he's cruising, but it's not against the stiffest level of competition. This is a tough fight, but this is also a 23-year-old. This is also a guy that is young, is green, is learning on the job, arguably lost his last two fights. His last legitimate loss was to an 0-2 Chinese opponent. Like, could you expose a guy like this a little bit? Yeah. Are we overlooking a guy like Kyler Phillips? I think a lot of people are. So I actually agree with your assessment. I had Kyler Phillips, and I think Kyler Phillips by decision. It's a big plus money play. I wouldn't go, not big, but I wouldn't go super, super heavy on it. I'm not super, super confident in it. But the line seems to make sense. Like, the money makes sense. Don't just chase money all the time, but I'm going to agree with you here. Kyler Phillips by decision.
Shout out to our guy Brady, DFS by the numbers in the chat, asking if Phillips will be able to deal with the power of Song Yadong coming forward to him like Marlon Vera and Cody Stamen were able to do in their fight. So if he's able to eat those first couple shots, we should get a good indication of how the rest of this fight should go. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing how that plays out. All right, let's move out to the next fight. This is the prelim headliner now. We got Dominic Cruz coming back against Casey Kenny here, and it's so weird to see Dominic Cruz so low on the card, especially on the prelims here, and in a 3-round fight. It's not often that you get to see him there. I think the last time, I could be mistaken here, was when he came back after an extended layoff and absolutely bull rushed Takeya Mizugaki, got him out there within the first minute or a minute and a half, but that was years ago, right? We're talking in 2021 now with Dominic Cruz going up and against Casey Kenny, who, he's been looking great as of late. Goes out there, wins a solid fight over Nathaniel Wood. And that was a quick turnaround after he had beaten Haile Alateng and just absolutely kicked this guy's guts to a different dimension. Like, I've never seen so many kicks land so clean over a 15-minute mark. I was surprised at Haile's ability to, durability actually, to continue to just march forward no matter what Casey Kenny was throwing his way. Now, when you see Nathaniel Wood give him a little bit more trouble on the feet, like give him a little bit more different looks and not just being a standing target for him. You see, you see Casey Kenny kind of slow down a little bit in that later in that fight. You see him start to question himself a little bit, but he still ends up getting it done. Right, he still is able to land takedowns. He always has that scramble ability to lean on. But in this fight against Dominic Cruz, it's so tough to tell what kind of Cruz we're going to get, because how much can you truly extract from him losing to Henry motherfucking Cejudo, right? Like, one of the best fighters that we've ever seen at these lower weight classes. Now you're talking about a step down, but against a guy that's young, hungry, up and coming, looking to take that crown and add that Dominic Cruz scalp to his belt. Now, Dominic Cruz looks like a guy to me that wouldn't want to mess up his legacy by taking fights like this. I mean, he has a pretty cushy job over there with the UFC, being a commentator for them. He does a bunch of like social media posts for them as well too. But like this fight, he's still 35 years old. He's had 7 fights over 10 years. But it feels like to me, going into this fight against Casey Kenny, truly believes that he's going to win. Like, truly believes that he can go out there and put on a vintage Dominic Cruz type performance. The thing that gives me pause here is that Casey Kenny has a very good kicking game. And as we saw from the Henry Cejudo fight, if you're able to implement it right off the bat, it could immobilize Dominic Cruz and kind of slow down that game and, not give us the Dominic Cruz that we know and love in terms of just continuously moving, giving us that funky in and out movement. Now, the other guy that we saw recently defeat Dominic Cruz was Cody Garbrandt. And it seemed like the key in that fight was anytime Dominic Cruz closed a distance, Cody Garbrandt was expecting him to close that distance and threw a combination in return and pretty much scared Dominic Cruz off of coming in for the majority of that fight. And then he takes home a decision victory. Styles on him a little bit too much. Probably could have finished him if he followed up on some of those strikes rather than dancing and showing off to the audience. But that was the first time we saw that Dominic Cruz puzzle get solved. And then Henry Cejudo solves it. But it's so tough to extract how Casey Kenny will be able to implement his game based off how great fighters like Cody Garbrandt and Henry Cejudo approached it. Casey Kenny, more of a kicker, more of a grappler too, but Dominic Cruz has a very underrated grappling game himself. Whenever you see guys take him down, he's pretty much right back to his feet. Henry Cejudo tried taking him down. You see Dominic Cruz get right back to his feet. So I'm not completely on the boat of writing off Dominic Cruz here. I think he could still go out there and pull off a victory. He's the side that I lean with here ever so slightly, but I'm not running to the betting window to make a bet here on him. But obviously, we know Dominic Cruz is probably not going to finish Casey Kenny here. So Dominic Cruz to win via decision would be plus 165. Not too bad of a mark. You are getting plus 110 on him straight, and it's so weird seeing a plus number beside Dominic Cruz's name. But I think we could still see a performance from him here where he goes out there, styles on Kenny a little bit, does the vintage Dominic Cruz thing, and pulls away with the decision. Am I crazy? How are you seeing this one?
No, I actually went Dominic Cruz as well. I mean, yeah, he's 35 years old, and yeah, he's fought twice in the last 8 years, and the knees are just shot to bit. You see he's just all taped up, and he's clearly compromised, but he is Dominic Cruz. He's got the back class. He's fought the best guys in the world, and he is innovative. He's got high ring IQ. If his body could keep up with his head, it's just he'd be able to fight into his 40s. Unfortunately, he fights at a weight class where speed is everything, and he's had a lot of knee injuries. He's had some shoulder problems. He's just had a lot of injuries, right? But he does himself no favors, man. The guy took a 3.5-year long layoff, came back, and they're like, who do you want? He's like, TJ Dillashaw. What? and he gets the fight, and he wins. And it was a really good fight. I didn't think he won, but it was a really close fight, and he got the victory. It's crazy. So now this time he's coming off a near 4-year-long layoff. It's like, I want to fight again. It's like, all right, well, what do you want? Henry Cejudo. It's like, oh, and they give it to him, right? Dominic Cruz gets what he wants. He wants those big spots. He gets those big spots. Now, you mentioned earlier, they give these guys choice of opponents. Well, who do you want to fight? Well, Dominic Cruz is a beloved broadcaster. He's friends with all these guys on the team. He's fought for them. He's been their champion. Dana White likes the guy. He's 35. He's on the tail end. He's coming off of two losses. He ain't what he used to be. Let's give this guy a winnable fight to set him off in the sunset. And I would think it'd be Dominic Cruz, an analyst for the company, that would say, I would like to fight Casey Kenny. Now, consider this for a moment. The guy's fought his last fight against Henry Cejudo, the number 1 guy in the world, right? He's fought Cody Garbrandt. He's fought TJ Dillashaw. He's fought all the best guys in the world. Okay. Consider this. He's asked for the best guys in the world. They've given him the best guys in the world. The number 1 in the guy in the world is Peter Yan. You don't got to worry about him. Aljamain Sterling, Corey Sandhagen, Rob Font, Pedro Munoz, Jose Aldo, Cody Garbrandt, Marlon Moraes, Frank Yeager, Merab Dvalishvili, Rafael Assunção, Marlo Cheaton Vera, Raoni Barcelos, Jimmy Rivera, Sugar Sean O'Malley, and Casey Kenny are right at that spot, right? He's fucking taking on the 16th or 17th best bantamweight in the world, right? So they're giving you plus money, and he's taking on a guy that I like Casey Kenny. I think he's headed in that direction. I think he's going in that direction. But there's no doubt that motherfucker is coming off a very, very close win, contested win over Nathaniel Woods his last time out, where he did get tired. And I know 3-week turnaround, took the fight out at 140, flew back to Vegas, had to fly all the way back to Abu Dhabi. Maybe his body was shutting down. But again, that was the first time that they gave him a legitimate fight. His other fights against Merab Dvalishvili, he just got out wrestled. He's had favorable matchups and spots, right? So in this fight, it's like, hey, how does he do his best work? Well, he loves the kicks, right? And Casey Kenny loves to mix in the takedowns. He's not taking down Dominic Cruz. And if he was to take him down, he's not holding him down. That's what saved him against Nathaniel Wood. Mix up the takedown. The first round against Wood, he looks great. The kicks are on point. But the more pace is being set, the more the guy starts to get tired a little bit. And with Dominic Cruz, cardio has never been a problem for him. And he's a guy that fights at a good pace. I'm worried about the leg kicks to his knees because he's got no fucking knees. None. But now there's Thiago Santos, and it doesn't take away from the fact that it's like these guys can still be dangerous. They have fought at a very high level. They've seen it all. They've been in 5-round wars. Again, whereas the B side to this, which is Casey Kenny, Yeah, he hasn't fought in the top 5, top 10 guys of the division. He hasn't really been at that level. He hasn't really experienced all that. And I just think it might be a little bit of too much too soon. Whereas with Cruz, ain't the guy he used to be, but at least they're not matching him up with the number 1 guy in the world. So all I'm saying is that it is finally a winnable fight for Dominic Cruz. He's got the kind of style that he can keep this fight standing. He could go out there and outland the better strikes. I know some people don't believe in favoritism, but if it is a close fight and it goes to the scorecards, maybe he gets that rub. But beyond all that is that Casey Kinney this is low key what people aren't really talking about. Casey Kinney gave up 12 takedowns to Rob Dvalishvili, 3 takedowns to Manny Bermudez, and 7 takedowns to Ray Borg, right? Dominic Cruz is a very good wrestler. It's that when you're fighting Henry Cejudo, you're not taking him down. When you're fighting Cody Garbrandt, you're not taking him down. When you're taking down Uriah Faber, oh wait, he took down Faber 3 times. He took down TJ Dillashaw 4 times. He took down Demetrius Johnson 10 fucking times. Dominic Cruz is a great wrestler. The thing is that you know him for peacocking. You know him for swinging barn hooks, you like him for that check stuff. You like the head movement, but it's like, dude's is sneaky. His timing on his shots is phenomenal. And that's the way to beat Casey Kinney. Strike with him for a little bit, keep it competitive standing for a little bit, time that takedown, take this motherfucker down. So, I agree. Listen, you got Cruz by decision is a big plus money table, plus 165. It's a nice looking tag. I had this as a dog or pass. Cruz is the dog. Give me the dog. Plus 100 doesn't really scream dog. Cruz by decision. Does he knock out Casey Kinney? No, Cruz don't knock out anybody. Does he submit Casey Kinney? No, he's not submitting anybody. If he's going to win this fight, he's winning it by decision. I think the fight goes to decision, regardless if Casey Kinney wins or not. This fight's going to decision. But if you want to chase a better price tag, then trust me, this fight going the distance. Like most people are on the same side here, right? You would juice it by going Cruz by decision plus 165. So I agree. It seems like we're on the same underdogs in this card.
I know. I'm not liking that.
Neither am I. Maybe some bad juju, but I just hope we're on the same page. We both saw the same thing, and the MMA gods are kind to us. But I'm going to agree again here.
Look at us picking Joseph Benavidez and Dominic Cruz in 2021 against up-and-coming prospects. But it's all about styles in this game, and I feel like both these guys match up pretty well against their opponents. All right, let's move on to the next fight. This is the main card now that we're talking about, and it just gets better. We got a light heavyweight scrap here between Thiago Marreta Santos against Alexander Rakic. This is the moment of truth for Alexander Rakic to go out there and put a name like Thiago Santos on his belt, and I feel like he's going to be successful in doing so. Now, I think the fact that's going to stun a lot of people or surprise a lot of people is that Thiago Santos is 37 years old, and it feels like he's like a young, spry, up-and-coming guy in the light heavyweight division, especially since he just fought John Jones not too long ago. But that's because he's been around the game for so goddamn long, and was spending a lot of his time at middleweight, where he was just a middleweight. But he comes up to light heavyweight, gets a good luck of the draw in some of his matchups, gets the win. The Jan Blachowicz one I'll give to him. That was a very solid knockout victory that he had there. But then goes into that John Jones fight, and now everybody's like, oh my God, look at Thiago Santos having such a close fight with John Jones on 2 torn knees. And then since then, came back, lost to Glover Teixeira. But let's quickly go over all of the last 4 opponents of John Jones since fighting John Jones. 2-6. 2-6. The only 2 wins. Mr. Anthony Smith beating Alexander Gustafsson, and then Anthony Smith most recently beating Devin Clark. So not the best resume as of late, but people continue to use that as a reason to back guys like Thiago Santos, to back guys like Dominic Reyes and Anthony Smith. But you have to look at it like how they're looking now. And Thiago Santos, coming off of those torn ACLs, did not look good in the Glover Teixeira fight. It truly showed in that fight that he just couldn't, like his kicking game was very much diminished compared to what we've seen in the past. And albeit the fight was on the feet or on the ground with, Thiago Santos with his back on the ground for the majority of it. And now in this fight against Alexander Rakic, he's going up against a much better striker than Glover Teixeira, a guy that will definitely be the stronger guy in the cage, in my opinion, in Rakic. That guy is a big dude for this weight class, and obviously very powerful. His top control, his top game is very crushing as well too. I think he has all the talent in the world to go out there and be a 205-pound champion even today. The only real knock you can give on this guy is obviously his very close fight against Volkan Oezdemir. Could have gone either way. I'm not going to call it a robbery or anything like that, but we did see some good stuff from Volkan there, using that calf kick and trying to slow down Rakic. But the only other thing we can bang on him for is getting dropped twice by Devin Clark at the beginning of their fight. But after that, shows great awareness, shows great durability, comes back and knocks the fuck out of Devin Clark himself. So I like what we see from Rakic. I like his That, like, I like to go back to that Justin Ledet fight where it, and again, Justin Ledet, not the greatest of opponents, don't get me wrong, but what we saw from Rakic that night reminded me of like prime Cain Velasquez, where you get great striking mixed in with takedowns and just complete domination from pillar to post. I believe he scored that fight like 30-24 all around. The guy has skills everywhere. So I think he will be successful in closing the distance here against Thiago Santos. He will be successful in getting this fight to the ground, riding out that top position, and just accumulating the minutes. We know he's not shy to make it a boring fight, just like that Anthony Smith fight where he kicked his calves off within 2 minutes of this fight, yet still decided to go out there and just lay and pray. Not just lay and pray. He stayed active enough where the referee didn't actually stand him up. But I can see him doing the same thing here against Santos to nullify that power that's going to be coming back his way. So I don't think that Santos truly has it anymore, at least not to compete at this level of competition. And I think Alexander Rakic is at that point to go out there and continuously take this guy down, maybe go the Glover route here. I think Glover has a better top game and obviously much better jiu-jitsu, but Rakic is just so damn strong. I find it hard to believe that Santos will be able to deal with that grappling onslaught, and then the better striking that we should be getting from Rakic as well would definitely help him out here too. And what if he starts targeting that calf like he did against Anthony Smith as well too? That guy, Santos, has like nothing between his knees right now, right? Like the guy has like no cartilage in his ACL. The guy is just walking on bone right now. So I think it's going to be very difficult for Santos to get the W here. It's a Hail Mary or nothing for him. I think if he gets a knockout, that's his only path to victory here. But I think that we see Rakic continues to get this fight to the ground and grind out a decision victory. So in terms of props, we got Rakic here via decision at plus 230. A lot of people are going to expect this fight to be a barn burner. But when you're Alexander Rakic, just knocking on the door of that top three, you're not going to risk this fight to make it a barn burner. You're going to make it as safe as possible. Take this to the ground. Let's get a decision victory, baby. Plus 230, not too bad. Minus 155 on the money line is not too bad either for what we're getting in Alexander Rakic. So yeah, I like Rakic here if you clearly can't tell, and I like him to win via decision. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, so as far as a prop in this fight goes, I like the over 1.5 at minus 145. Yep. Alexander Rakic is not really big on finishes. He's one of these guys that likes to take his time, slow down the action, but his two weapons are just slow down the action moves, right? He loves the calf kick, loves the leg kick, tries to demobilize you a little bit, and then he likes to mix in a little takedown here and there. But his wrestling's not very good. He has something like a 28% takedown accuracy, and really a guy that's known for his wrestling. He likes to mix in the wrestling. He likes to, use that top control, but he also just likes ticking time off the clock. Thiago Santos, meanwhile, it's like, oh man, Thiago Santos is not an under 1.5 kind of guy. But in fact, he kind of is, right? If he goes out in there and loses the fight, he's durable enough to bank you some rounds. I mean, you've seen that in the Glover fight where he makes it to the third and he was taking a lot of damage there. The John Jones fight, he goes 5 rounds with the dirty goat, right? But also the Jan Blachowicz fight, 3rd round knockout, and it was a win. Jimmy Manuwa, 2nd round. Eric Anders quit on a stool after the round, but it was like, it's still 3 rounds of a hellacious beating. Kevin Holland fight goes the distance. So even when he's winning fights, I mean, he's not really, at least in his later years, a 1st round knockout guy. He's more so just like at some point you start to get a little bit tired. He hits you with that good shot. He puts you down. But yeah, he's 37 years old. Both of his knees were blown out against John Jones. Massive surgery, comes back, year-long layoff, takes a bad fight stylistically, really, for him, and Glover Teixeira, the old man that just won't go away. And even then, still on 2 compromised knees with all the ring rust, not looking good, did not look good in that fight. We were all on the same page. We faded him huge.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, that 1st round was dicey. He had him hurt. That 3rd round was dicey. He had him hurt. He does have a ton of power. He's always going to be a live dog, and I would consider him this card to be a live dog. But again, if he does knock out Alexander Rakic, I would think it comes in later half of the 2nd round or the 3rd round, and then you'd hit that over 1.5. If Rakic goes out there and takes him down, manages to take him down, that's the easiest path to victory. So stand with this dude, take him down. If he does manage to take him down and ride him the way we've seen Glover easily ride him, then yeah, okay, again, we're going to hit those over. So the over 1.5 at minus 145, I thought that was the best play. But as far as the pick on the fight goes, I think I'm going to go with Thiago Santos, and a lot of it's more so just like a feeling, right? A feeling. Fighting John Jones, it was a good fight for him, right? It was a split decision. I thought he lost, but I thought he lost 4-1 pretty convincingly. But again, same way that when Jones beat Gus the first time, people like to shit on him and think he lost. But Santos at least gave a good account of himself. He's swinging bombs. He's at least trying to make it an entertaining fight. It just doesn't work out. The layoff, the injury, the age, that all screams disaster. And it was disastrous against Glover. But hearing him talk, he's very much like, man, I knew that was going to happen in the Glover fight. I wasn't ready. I wasn't feeling good. The weight cut was hard because I couldn't run because of the knees and this and that. And now you see him just like totally different character, just like feels good. Really looking forward to this fight. My body feels great. My knees are finally feeling good. And so he's I think they just got married, but anyways, he's engaged to Yana Kunikeya.
Yeah, they're engaged.
You see her come over to American Top Team, and whether you thought Ketlin Vieira won that fight, which she didn't, that was a Yana win. Yana came in looking in great shape. She's not exactly young herself, but I mean, she's made the move to ATT. She's in good shape. She was motivated. She was confident. She went out there. She cashed the dog ticket. Thiago Santos, he's motivated. I'd like to say he's in good shape, but I couldn't honestly tell you. I think that your knees are always going to be compromised. I don't think you go through those type of injuries and come back a new man, especially at 37. But yeah, he's got variables here, and that Rakic needs to sprinkle in the wrestling, and I don't think his wrestling is good enough to take down Santos. If the fight does hit the ground, Santos is actually Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, so one figures he wouldn't be completely out of. I know it sounds crazy.
Levels to the shit when it comes to black belts, you know that.
Well, dude, I mean, Glover's a black belt, and you saw what black belt and black belt looks like on the ground. It's like
40-year-old black belt against a 36-year-old at the time, but. You're right.
I've always said it. It's a Brazil thing. You turn 16, they're like, here's your driver's license, and here is your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day. And some people's like, man, they're not a real black belt. It's like, right, but they turn 16 in Brazil, right? That's kind of
like their bar mitzvah, pretty much.
Yeah, this guy is a banger. He's always been a banger. He does have a questionable chin. I mean, Gegard Mousasi knocked him out with like a light punch, but Dave Branch knocked him out bad, and it was like, oh man. And then you see him take an absolute beating against Glover and go 5 rounds against Jones. Like, is he chinny? Is he not chinny? The Eric Spicely fight, does he have a ground game? Does he have a decent ground game? It's all question marks, but I love Rakic in that he's Slavic. I go for all my Slavic brethrens, right? I would never disrespect the guy. I think he's got past the victory. I think with the leg kick, mixing in a few takedowns, being faster, being younger, having better cardio. But Thiago Santos is a live underdog. Learned a lot on these spots every week where it's like, I just don't quite pull the true underdog. I make good points for why they could come through, why they should come through, but I just don't really want to bet it myself. So again, I take a pass on this fight, but it's so fun and exciting, such a nice fun. I'm going to want a little action on it. So I'll take that over 1.5. And I think officially I'm going to swing with the dog play, Thiago Santos.
All right, we finally got a little bit of disagreement here, ever so slightly. Again, you're not running to the betting window to bet Thiago Santos here, but yeah, I'm glad that we got a little bit of a disagreement. All right, we got over 300, close to 400 people in the chat right now. Make sure you guys hit that like already. We only have 112 likes. How is that possible? If you guys are enjoying yourself, make sure you guys hit that like. That definitely helps your boys out, and obviously lets the odds crew know that you guys enjoy watching us every Thursday evening at 8 p.m. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We got another banger of a fight. We got Islam Makhachev going up against Drew Dober here. Obviously, Makhachev heavy favorite. Coming in at -370 plus 310 for Drew Dober. Drew obviously been looking really good as of late. Knocks out Nasrat Haqparast, and then most recently knocks out Alexander Hernandez. And I feel like people are trying to convince themselves that the line is too wide here, and I gotta disagree, man. I think the line is exactly where it should be, given Makhachev's strengths here, which is obviously his grappling and his wrestling. Now, we haven't seen Makhachev truly go up against a striker of Drew Dober's level in a couple of fights now, right? He's going up against Davi Ramos, who's mainly a jiu-jitsu guy, Arman Sarukian, who's mainly a jiu-jitsu guy. So it's tough to truly extract from those fights to be like, okay, he can truly deal with these strikers now. Like, he fought that southpaw and Adriano Martins, who was able to put him out, and that was his only loss in his career. And now he's going up against another southpaw and Drew Dober here, who unfortunately only has a 58% takedown defense rate. And that's not going to cut it against our guy, Islam Makhachev, who is, it may be a stretch to call him Khabib 2.0, but like, given everything that we've been seeing in terms of how much they're talking this kid up, from, Khabib saying he probably even is a better wrestler than me, to Daniel Cormier saying, he's one of the best wrestlers that he's been seeing in the practice room. But you always have to take that with a grain of salt, because these guys are training partners. They're obviously going to, jack each other off a little bit more than they should be. But I think that Makhachev actually is the truth, man. His hands and his striking have been looking much better. Like, to go out there and outstrike Davy Ramos, on the surface, it may not look like much, but Davy Ramos packs the punch. And when he's not able to get the fight to the ground, he resorts to his striking. And Makhachev held his own in that regard, and even did a really good job in terms of, taking advantage of those situations. Drew Dober, though, I just don't like his takedown defense. Like, seeing Benio Dariush trying to like take him down with body locks. Yeah, he's able to stuff some of those takedowns, but when you have such a crafty takedown artist in Makhachev, you're going to get the body locks, but you're also going to get a trip behind it. You're going to get a double leg. You're going to get a single leg. He has so many different entries on his takedowns that I don't think that Dober is going to be ready for it. I don't think it's going to be like a Jorge Masvidal, Ben Askren thing where like you see Makhachev just go out there and try to shoot a takedown right away and run into a flying knee. I think Makhachev is rounding out his game well enough. The only knock you can truly give him here is we haven't seen him since UFC 242, I believe it was the night we saw Dustin Poirier fight Khabib Nurmagomedov. So it's been a while since he's been around. But he's been scheduled for fights. He was supposed to fight Hernandez in April of last year. He was supposed to fight RDA in October of last year. He's supposed to fight RDA again in November. So he's been training. He's been staying active. I think he's going to go out there and beat Drew Dober. And I think he's going to be very live to potentially get a finish via submission here as well. If you look at the last couple losses for Drew Dober, they've all come via submission. Obviously, Beneil Dariush, super high-level jiu-jitsu player, armbars him in the second round. Olivier Aubameyang, not particularly known to be a submission artist, rear naked chokes him in the second round. And then the one before that, Efrain Escudero, June 2015, rear naked chokes him. Now, obviously, Drew Dober is a much better fighter since then, but to get a guy like Makhachev, this is going to be a tough and stiff test for Dober. I think it's knockout or bust for Dober here. There's no way he wins a decision, no way he wins it via submission, but I think that Makhachev is going to have him covered everywhere, get this fight to the ground, and get a submission, probably second round. What about you? Oh, you might be on mute or something. Weird. Well, as Cody figures out his situation, I'll let him do that. Makhachev, obviously, very, very highly touted prospect, comes out of that same training camp as Khabib. As you guys see, you see Khabib in his corner pretty much every single fight. If not in his corner, you see him going out there and being front row at his fights, very much involved with Makhachev's progression as a fighter.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. All right, hit me, Cody.
I don't know why it does that. I got to look into that. Listen, I agree with the point. I think that it's interesting you're going to maybe chase him by submission because, it's live. I mean, he's submitted decent guys before, but he's not big for submissions. Makhachev's a guy that likes to get the takedown, and like Khabib, if the submission was to present itself, he'll go for it. More often than not, he just kind of grinds it down and doesn't let you get any position. And if you get back up, he'll peel you back down. And I think that's the path here too. This is a classic MMA fight. You've got a striker versus a grappler. Islam Makhachev doesn't want to strike for a prolonged period of time. You mentioned his one loss, Adrian Martins. He got knocked out. And with Drew Dober, this is what he does. He's giving up the takedowns against Hernandez, but he works his way back up. When he gets back up, he's a problem. He's got big power. Training with guys like Justin Gaethje, it's like he's really put a good game together that revolves around, sprawl and brawl, keep the fight standing, use this big power to knock these guys out. I agree that he's on a good run. I just don't think he's fought in anybody like Islam Makhachev. I mean, Drew Dober's given up takedowns to a lot lesser guys. And with Makhachev, it's not just the takedown, it's the consistency of the takedowns, right? When you look at his record, it's just riddled with, he's fought in wrestlers and he's taking them down. When you look at Arman Sakurian, right, he goes 4 for 9. Who the hell's taken down Arman 4 times? But 4 for 9 is pretty decent. When you look at him versus Nick Lentz, Nick Lentz is a guy that wrestled D1 at the University of Minnesota. He went 5 for 5 on takedowns. Chris Wade wrestled D1 as well. He goes 4 for 4 on takedowns, 100% takedowns against these guys. These guys are wrestlers. These guys know how to wrestle. Islam gets you down. When you got Khabib saying, you know what, part of the reason I'm stepping down is I've had my time and my mother doesn't want me to fight. And one of the reasons he keeps saying it too is it's Islam's time. It's Makhachev's time. This is his time. He'll be the next champ at 155. He's the young man. And he's a young man. He fights a similar, albeit not the same style. Everybody's high up on him, that all of his training partners, everyone that's been in the room with him. And it looks like he can keep going to this. So with Dober, I mean, if you're giving up 3 takedowns to Alexander Hernandez, he gave up 3 takedowns to Frank Camacho, the takedowns to Beneil Dariush. Beneil Dariush, there's no way he would have even known what state he was in, right? He's a rock, he's hurt, and it's just time to take you down, takes him down and submits him. It's oh man, the takedown are going to be there for him. And similar to Justin Gaethje, mind you, I was on this narrative. It's spend the whole camp working your wrestling and stop Khabib's takedown long enough to do a little something standing. It's man, you could prepare for 5 years. It doesn't matter. If he wants you down, he's going to get you down. That's what these guys do. Makhachev's the same thing, right? I mean, if he wants it, he'll get it. If he doesn't get it on the first, it says he only has 68% takedown accuracy, but that's because they'll chain wrestle. Yeah. They'll throw 2 non-attempts to get you to move a certain way to nail you with the third, right? It's kind of how these guys go. And so I think that, listen, this is MMA. Puncher's chance is always a real thing. I think Drew Dober would be live for a puncher's chance, but that's about it. He's not submitting Makhachev. He's not going out there and putting the paces on him for 15 minutes. He's just got to keep this fight standing as long as he can. And I think that's where he'll struggle. So I like Dober. I think that he could land that shot, the way Adriano Martins did, but that's a long time ago, man. That was his second fight in the UFC. He's like 10 fights into his career, taking on a Pride FC veteran who had like 25 fights. Like, it's a very difficult spot against Adrian Martins. He's learned a lot since then. I hope he comes back. Going to the submission, the only notable guy he's ever submitted really was Cajun Johnson, who I only say is notable because he is a black belt. But again, like, outside of that, yeah, his other submissions, Leo Kuntz, like, okay, so he's submitting good guys. Like, does he submit over? Like, I don't know, maybe not. Like, I could see this one going to decision, and so that's the route I went. And when Makhachev by decision was -105, and fight goes the distance as well is not a bad price tag. So those are the three spots I went with.
All right, fun fight for sure. All right, let's get into the title fights now. Top three fights we got. Bantamweight division, we got the OG from Russia, Petr Yan, going up against Aljamain Sterling. This fight, easily the most closely contested fight on the card. We're seeing a lot of Aljo money come in as well, too, to make this fight pretty much a pick'em. He opened up around that +120 line, but Aljo money is rolling in. I'm just going to say pick'em, -110 on each side. Now, going into this, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely going to pick Petr Yan to win this fight. Once you run the tape, you start to step back a little bit, right? You see points in time where Petr Yan is a little bit too not gun shy per se, but a little bit too patient, and he gives away minutes at times, right? And I think that's very difficult to do against a guy like Aljamain Sterling, who's quite active, stays on his bicycle, not the greatest with his hands, but decent enough kicks to stay active enough, keep moving, just as he did in most of his fights leading up to this fight against Petr Yan. But then you see so let's just take the Jimmy Rivera fight, for example, for Petr Yan, losing the first and second rounds up until the point he drops him at the end of both of those fights, or both of those rounds with 10 seconds left. That's the only thing that steals him back those rounds. And then I believe he did drop that third round as well too. And that's all coming down to patience and just over-analyzing a little bit too much and waiting for his spots. Now, when he opens up, the guy is an absolute monster, right? That Muay Thai is second to none in this division. He's a master when it comes to throwing those combinations together, but he just waits a little bit too much for my liking. Even the Jose Aldo fight drops that second round because he's just waiting a little bit too much. With Aljamain Sterling, you can't be waiting. Before you know it, you're 3 rounds deep, and this guy's already up 3 rounds because he's just more active than you. Now, I think that most people, if they want to break this fight down strictly from a striker versus grappler realm, they're in for a rude awakening. Both guys have great success on the opposite sides of their considered martial art, right? Aljamain Sterling, solid striker, like I'm saying, breaking it down by saying he's active, he throws volume, he keeps moving. And then Petr Yan, you watch those Magomedov fights, very active off of his back, throwing up submissions, arm bars, triangles. He doesn't complete any of them, but you see the fluidity in his movements, that he's actually, knowledgeable, and he's not just this Muay Thai killer that goes out there and tries to take these guys' heads off. And that's another misconception I think a lot of people have, is that he's this one-punch knockout power guy. He's not that guy. He's more of an accumulative striker that just wears on you, and then eventually takes you out. Whereas Aljamain Sterling, his only knockout loss was that crazy knee by Marlon Moraes. But since then, it seems like his chin has been pretty good. Ate some decent bombs from Jimmy Rivera, ate some decent bombs from Pedro Munoz. Obviously, Petr Yan, who knows how his power racks up to those guys. But I think the activity and the volume is going to be the difference maker here. And I think that if Aljo's cardio doesn't completely fall off a cliff later in this fight, I think he should be able to rack up at least 3 rounds here. Even if he's not successful with his grappling, I think he could absolutely make it a dogfight by just staying more active. Now, the one caveat I'm going to throw in here, and I'll wrap it up after this, is Petr Yan, majority of this camp spent down at ATT. Now, I expect him to have his regular coaches in his corner, but the one thing that we've been seeing from ATT as of late is the calf kicks, right? Most notably, Thiago Moises last weekend and Pedro Munoz last weekend. Now, is that something that Petr Yan is going to implement into his game? He's more of just a kicker, just a regular kicker. Doesn't target the calf as much as these other guys, but maybe spending that time at ATT reminds him, like, okay, this guy likes to move a lot. Let's try to debilitate him. Let's try to immobilize him. Let's go after that calf and try to slow him down so I can get the rest of my game going. If he comes out with that game plan, then yeah, I'd be ripping up my Aljamain Sterling ticket and knowing that it's a matter of time before Petr Yan tracks him down and absolutely puts an ass whooping on him here. But I like pre-tape. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Aljo in terms of how we can make this a difficult fight for Petr. And I'd slightly back Aljamain Sterling here, and I back him to win this fight via decision. The line that we currently have on that is Sterling to win by decision is plus 325. Now, 5 rounds is a long time to go up against a guy like Petr Yan. That guy lives for 5-round fights. The guy is an absolute monster when it comes to 5-round fights. So I'm not running to the betting window to bet against Petr Yan here. But given what I came out from on the other side of film study, tape study, is that Aljamain could make this a much closer fight just based off of volume and movement alone. What do you think about this one?
This is a very close fight. This is probably one of the best fights in the entire card just because it's two of the absolute best guys. What I mean by that is you look at the main event. This is a fun little main event, but it's like, okay, it's the real 205 champ ain't here. You got Jan Blachowicz, who it's pretty crazy. He got the belt to begin with, taking on a middleweight, a great middleweight, but you know what I'm saying. It's not exactly the two best 205s in the world. You look at the co-main event. It's like, what a fucking joke this is. It is the women's GOAT. Got to give her that. She's the best all time. Taking on, like, she's a 10-1 favorite over a non-challenger who could win. It's MMA. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it's not exactly super intriguing. This, it's like, I mean, Henry's the real champ. It's like, who cares about that? This is the second and third best people in the world. These are two of the absolute best. And it's a closely competitive fight. You know, you look at the main event, you look at the co-main event, maybe it's competitive, maybe it's not competitive. This is nice. This is good right up the middle. I can see both guys winning. Petr Yan's got the better striking. I think that the leg kicks are going to work really well. Aljamain does have that long stance. So again, you don't work the calf kick, but also he's just got good combinations. He goes out there and he lands meaningful punches. And that's one thing you'll notice, right? Aljamain Sterling might have the volume. He'll jab from the outside. He'll kick from the outside, but his kicks are, you know, rangefinder kicks, and his jabs are rinky-dink jabs. Like, he doesn't throw anything with real power. It's almost like he just touches you. Some judges don't like that. They don't like you running. It's a perceived running. You hit the guy and then you're trying to get out of there. They don't mind, oh, Jan, sure, he got hit 3 or 4 times. He's been hit by the jabs. Oh, but look, he let his hands go. Oh, he let the leg kick. Oh, it looks like that one might have hurt a little bit. They favor that. This thing goes 5 rounds. I think Jan's going to land the more appealing shots. But Sterling's got the wrestling, man. I mean, this guy's a very good wrestler. Beyond that, he times his shots really good. So he'll have the striking from the outside. He'll have the speed. He'll have the length. But if he just mixes in those single leg takedowns, mixes in the wrestling, he could be okay. You've also seen Jan give up his back before. And I mean, Aljamain Sterling doesn't need much space to throw in that body triangle and backpack you. So he could bank these early rounds. And then in a 5-round fight, if you're now chasing a knockout at 135 pounds, like, it doesn't really materialize all that much. So I'll give Aljamain one thing, is that he's been fighting very, very, very smart lately. I mean, even you look back at the fight with Jimmy Rivera, it's like he couldn't take him down. He actually went 0 for 7 in takedowns in that fight. So it's like, okay, I need to go to plan B, which is strike with Jimmy Rivera. Tough concept. But it's like, man, just touch and move, get out of there. The Sandhagen fight, he takes him to the ground, submits him. But he's got different plans. He's very athletic. He's very fast. He's got good variables in the division. I could see him winning the fight. I'm going with Petr Yan. I think Petr Yan's going to land the better shots. And trust me, I'm a Team Yan guy all day. I think he just goes out there. But the real play, regardless of what side you're on, we'll have a full real argument on tomorrow night's show. But we're going props here. And the props here are almost all of the overs outside of the over 1.5. The over 2.5 is minus 190. That's a good price, man.
Yeah.
This thing's going the distance, and it's less than 2-1. The over 3.5 is minus 130. I like that. I like that a lot. I think this thing, if this is a 3-round fight, it's going the distance for sure. In a 5-round fight, it's banking rounds. The over 4.5 is minus 105. The fight goes the distance is plus 100. Jan to win by decision is plus 260. These are all very good price tags. But again, when you look at 135 pounds, there's not exactly the biggest power punchers out there. It's light on those finishes. When you look at Jan specifically, he took almost 5 full rounds to take out Jose Aldo. And those shots he was landing, was like, oh man, Aldo was tired. Aldo was getting hit. But it took him almost 5 full rounds. He took 3 rounds to get, well, I mean, he got him out early in there. But even the Uriah Faber fight, like, he is beating this guy up bad. He's taking rounds. The Jimmy fight goes the distance. The John Dodson fight was competitive, went the distance. The Jinsu Sun fight, he landed over 100 significant strikes. It went the distance. There's no doubt about it. Like, he can land 100 significant strikes, not quite put you down. He's not the biggest power guy going. Aljamain's been knocked out 1 time by clearly a move he never saw coming from Marlon Moraes. Like, we'll chalk that up as a fluke. I don't think he has a chin problem. It's okay. Flip side to that, like, Aljamain could submit you. Not that Petr Yan's ever been finished, but outside of the submission, like, he's not big on finishes as well. He's more so one of these guys that controls you and wins a decision. So I got this thing going 2.5. I got this thing going 3.5. I got this thing going 4.5. I got this thing going the decision. My official pick is going to be Petr Yan. I got this thing going the distance, so I got Petr Yan by decision. And again, that's a good tag, you know, plus 260 felt pretty good. But if you don't feel confident on either side this fight goes, surely you don't think this thing's ending in the first round, right? Surely you don't think this is 5 rounds to work with. Both guys realize it's a 5-round fight, it's a championship fight. They'll take their time. And with Peter Yan, you made this a great point yourself. There's lulls. This guy's hell on wheels. This guy keeps throwing. No. There's actually lulls. Well, he'll wait a bit and figure it out. He's got high ring IQ. He's figuring out, what are you doing? How are you going to react? I'll feint and I'll see how you bite, and then I'll, make a move. Like, it's high level stuff. It's not checkers, it's chess. And you're going to hit overs in these chess matches. This is a very well competitive fight. Both guys got a plethora of skills. Both guys have an avenue to victory. But beyond that, they'll take their time and they'll try to figure out what's best for their game. And I think that's going to lead to some of these overs. So that would be, as far as prop goes, that would be, I think, the safest route to go on this fight.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I definitely think this fight goes the full 5 rounds, and banking those overs like you're talking about, I think is a smart move here. I think that knockout from Moraes on Aljo was more of an anomaly, and I think people might be reading too far into that, and that might killed him, especially if they're going to be chasing a Yan KO prop here. Again, Yan, not a crazy one-punch knockout power kind of guy. He needs to cumulatively, break you down. And I think it's going to be hard to do that against Aljo here. But again, another fight that we kind of disagree on here. I'm liking it. But coming up in this next fight, if we disagree here, I might have to kick you off the show. We got Amanda Nunes coming up against Megan Anderson defending her. Amanda Nunes will be defending her featherweight strap here against Megan Anderson, who just seems like the UFC has been pushing her down our throat. Like, Phil Hawes was one guy the UFC wanted us to love. And, he's actually doing some decent stuff besides his one decision victory there against Nasruddin Imavov last time around. But with Megan Anderson comes into the UFC, they throw her Holly Holm right off the bat, and she cracks Holly Holm and turns Holly Holm into a wrestler. And when have you ever seen Holly Holm wrestle in a fight? And she had to do it that night, and she did it very successfully too. So not a good look right off the bat. So we see Holly Holm go out there, get a decision victory pretty much through grappling. Next fight out, we see Kat Zingano go in there. Megan Anderson, I believe, was a little bit of a favorite in that fight. And then we get that weird ass finish where she throws a head kick, apparently scratches the eyeball of Kat Zingano with her toenail, wins that fight, and starts celebrating like she legitimately won that fight. So that just shows you where her confidence level is at for that fight. Comes into her next fight, Felicia Spencer, 2 inches shorter than one Amanda Nunes, gets her down with relative ease and sinks in that choke, gets a submission victory relatively quickly. Then goes out there and gets absolute softballs with Zara Farn and Norma Dumont, who just, ate that one shot and just didn't want any more of it. You think Amanda Nunes is going to go down that easy? You got another thing coming for you. So I think this fight could be as easy as Amanda Nunes getting one takedown and then locking up a choke. I think that her best path to victory is submission. But then you put yourself into that weird conundrum where you're like, you got the back mount. Do you go for the ground and pound, or do you try to find that neck and get the submission? And either play could hit there. But I think she's going to be seeking the choke more than anything, just to make sure that she, one, doesn't give up her position too bad by just wailing on Megan Anderson from the back, and 2, secure that victory. Let's put this girl out and ensure we get that victory. So the spot that I'm targeting here is Amanda Nunes, first round. I think plus 170 is a good spot for it. I just don't see how Megan Anderson truly gets out of this fight without getting taken down and getting submitted. Does Megan Anderson knock out Amanda Nunes here? You get plus 1250, I believe the line is on her KO prop. And even that's not good enough for me to want to sprinkle a little bit on it. So I like Nunes here. We don't need to get too far into this fight. I think me and you share the same sentiments here. I'll let you say your piece. But the spot that I'm going to be aiming for is the Amanda Nunes round 1, plus 170. And just to be on the safe side, if you want just some sort of insurance in case Megan Anderson makes it out of that first round. Round 2 is plus 300. So I think that's even a better spot as well if you think that Megan Anderson survives that first round. So yeah, I like Nunes here, even though under 1.5 if you want to cover that Hail Mary potential KO for Megan Anderson. But I don't think this fight sees that third round. I like Nunes here, and I like her first round submission plus 170. How are you seeing this?
Yeah, so we agree and we disagree. I mean, I got also Amanda Nunes. She's the GOAT for a reason. She's defeated everybody that they put in front of her. In just like spectacular fashion. Whatever you're good, I'll do better. Stands with Holly Holm and head kicks are just to prove a point. Like, yeah, she really is on another level. But I don't love her by first round finish, to be honest with you. I mean, she's got a tendency to kind of take a little bit too much time. And honestly, this is just my take. I don't think she's motivated. I don't think she's motivated for this fight at all. I mean, You look at her run, and she's fought all the best girls in the world, right? She's got a knockout win over Ronda Rousey, who is the GOAT. She's got a knockout win over Chris Cyborg, who is the GOAT. She's got a knockout win over Holly Holm, who's in the contention for GOAT. She absolutely ragdolled Jermaine Durandamy for 5 rounds, who's a former world champion. She's fought all the best. She's got 2 fights with Valentina Shevchenko. Quite literally the only other girl who has an argument for being in the GOAT conversation with this girl, right? And she's got 2 wins over her. She's been there. She's done that. She's bought the t-shirt and she's wore it, right? She's now 32 years old. She's made millions of dollars. She's married to Nina Ansaroff, another UFC veteran, and they've just adopted a child. She's gone on record to be like, this training camp's been a lot different. And to be honest, you're not really seeing the killer instinct out of her that you were. And I think, again, it comes down to motivation. So you don't wake up and go run those miles. You don't run 5K first thing in the morning. You don't push your body. You don't get these hard sparring rounds in. You're the champ. You've made your money. 32 is not super old, but it's not exactly young either. And it's like, what motivates you? That next top challenger that's going to give you a problem, that motivates you. But she's not facing that. So the Jermaine Durandamy fight, she looked flat. She looked absolutely flat. Where was the world-class striking in that fight? She did not want to strike at all. She was like, I'm going to get this fight to the ground and hold her down. Where was the BJJ black belt there? Where was the submission game there? No, she was mostly just like, I'm going to make sure I'm winning these rounds by holding her down. And then the Felicia Spencer fight last time, Spencer took some shots, don't get me wrong. But it's like, again, you see her mostly going through the motions instead of like, oh, damn, she's coming out for that finish. And so as a result, we've got her last 2 fights going the distance, 25 minutes, and you see her take her time. So I think with Megan Anderson, she could go out there and get the first round finish. She's got the skills to go out there and get the first round finish. But like, who gives a shit about Megan? If you're the champ, this is what you're thinking. Who gives a shit about this girl, right? She's coming off a win over Norma Dumont, has set her up for a title fight. She's also coming off the win over Zara Farron. Those are her 2. She's got a 2-fight winning streak. 2. Not some long, lengthy winning streak. She hasn't defeated the top girls of the division. What motivates you? But this fight's also at 145. Amanda Nunes' best fights, no doubt about it. She can fight at 45, but like, she's better at 35. At 45, she's not quite as strong. She's not quite as big. Her cardio is not quite as good. She's just not quite as good all around. So what you have when you have an unmotivated fighter who's taking this fight up a weight class, who's got now a baby in her personal life and has got other things coming, is that they don't quite take it as seriously. And as though, I don't think this is a George St. Pierre, Matt Serra situation where it's like, George was not motivated for that fight. Let's be real. He's fighting Matt Hughes. How do you go from fighting Matt Hughes to fighting Matt Serra at that time? You know what I'm saying? Dude won the Ultimate Fighter. Beat Chris Lytle in the finals. Actually, fuck, I can't even turn. There's the poster.
There? Oh, hey.
Ultimate Fighter 4 finale, bruh. The comeback. Right?
I love it.
Patrick Cote almost got a title fight. Only Travis Lutter put him away. And then Travis Lutter gave Anderson Silva a go for 1 round.
1 round.
I mean, MMA is a crazy thing. We've seen it happen before. Could happen again, right? I think an unmotivated, out of shape version of her still wins this fight. It's just, I don't think she finishes this fight in the first round. So looking at the overs on this, the overs just look too good to pass up. Mainly the over 1.5 minus 130. The over 2.5 plus 170. I don't really feel great going beyond that. But again, when you look at Amanda Nunes, she was expected to finish Jermaine Durandamy. Absolutely was expected to, okay? She had finished Raquel Pennington, Chris Cyborg, and Holly Holm leading in. Jermaine Durandamy can't wrestle. Jermaine Durandamy has no submission defense. She's supposed to finish that fight, but she doesn't. The Felicia Spencer fight, I mean, this is another spot where you have Amanda Nunes coming in as a minus 650 favorite, okay? Felicia Spencer has 9 pro fights coming in from Invicta. She's going to finish this fight, but she doesn't. And even going back to that Raquel Pennington fight, it's a late 5th round stoppage after Raquel told her corner after the 4th round, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, Amanda Nunes has got all the skills in the world. She is the lady GOAT. I do agree with that. But is she a first round finisher all of a sudden? I'm not so sure. So as far as a prop goes, because you can't bet this thing straight up. No. As far as a prop goes, I think I'm going to go the over 1.5 and a slight sprinkle on the over 2.5, which I know goes against what you're saying, but we do have her ultimately winning.
No, for sure. The concern that I have here is I can't get that Felicia Spencer fight out of my mind with Megan Anderson. Like, she gives out that choke pretty easily, and given that Nunes, I believe, is a much better black belt than one Felicia Spencer, I see Megan Anderson just giving up that back, and we see a quick Nunes finish here. But you do have some solid points what the narrative is going into this. Is she motivated? Is she waking up to run those 5Ks in the morning and all that type of stuff? Personally, I don't even think she needs to train for this fight to win this fight. Just lean on that black belt in jiu-jitsu, get this fight to the ground as soon as you can, and try locking that sub so we don't have to worry about that over hitting here. But yeah, so you're going with the over 1.5, obviously picking Nunes. I'm going with the first round Nunes finish. Let's see who comes out on the winning end next weekend. All right. Let's move on to the main event now. I'm very, very excited for this fight. Maybe not as excited as the Petr Yan Aljamain Sterling fight, but this is the first foray for Israel Adesanya, middleweight champion, going up to light heavyweight against the title holder right now, Jan Blachowicz. Blachowicz defends his title for the first time after knocking out Dominic Reyes. I believe that was back in September on actually the same card that we saw Israel Adesanya put away Paulo Costa, UFC 253. So both guys last time fought on the same night. They come back now. They're fighting each other. From a storyline perspective, I'm not really a big fan of this matchup. I was hoping that the UFC would give Jan Blachowicz Glover Teixeira. Glover Teixeira's biggest fight right now is up against Father Time, so he doesn't have too much time really left to just sit on the sidelines and wait for a title shot. But let's not forget that Glover is sitting on the sidelines in case something goes wrong at the weigh-ins for these guys, or whether one of them get pulled out for COVID or something like that. So at least we have a backup for this main event. But in terms of stylistically, how these guys match up, right? Israel Adesanya, master when it comes to the striking game. The guys, the approach that he took in the Paulo Costa fight, very impressive. Attack that calf kick right off the bat, take the power and the sting away from the shots of Paulo Costa, and then let your hands do the work in the second round. And that's exactly what happens. Drops him, knocks him out. Big win for him there. Now with Blachowicz, now he's fighting a guy that's like going to be a solid 20 or 30 pounds heavier than him. I'm very much intrigued to see what he looks like on scales tomorrow, which is why I can't wait to do the final weigh-in with you guys tomorrow as well, to see how we dissect. Apparently he might come in at 193 or 195 or some shit. Isn't there like a limit that you need to reach? Like you can't be more than 186 or less than 186 pounds for a 205-pound fight. So he's going to have to make sure that he has his ducks in a row in terms of that information. But I think that him being lighter here will help with his speed. And that's what it's going to ultimately come down to. I saw this exchange earlier on Twitter or Instagram between Corey Anderson and Jimmy Manuel, who both fought Jan Blachowicz in the past. And the one thing that they're alluding to is that they think the lighter guy in Adesanya here will be super successful due to his speed. And that's one thing that we can knock on Blachowicz is he's a little bit slow at times. The guy covered distance pretty well with combinations, and that's how he was able to knock out Dominic Reyes, especially readjusting his nose with one of those shots. Absolutely brutal shot that he took there. But unless Blachowicz can get this fight down with, a certainty and actually be comfortable down there, I think he's going to have a hard time tracking down Adesanya and getting his own strikes off. Now, if he lands cleanly enough on his Adesanya, will that Polish power come out, and will it actually do some damage to Adesanya? The one thing that sticks out in my mind is seeing Adesanya get rocked and hurt by Kelvin Gastelum when he was fighting a 170er in Kelvin Gastelum, right? So that's the one thing that always sticks out to me here regarding whenever we see Adesanya, again, going up in a weight class, fighting a heavy puncher like Paulo Costa in the past. That's always going to stick out in my mind. But I still think that we see Adesanya go out there, kind of style on Blachowicz. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him go out there and do the calf kick thing again. Let's take the pop off the shot. Let's take away the movement of Blachowicz here, and so that we can get our hands going. He's going to have a height and reach advantage here as well too, which will pay right into his game. But yeah, I think Adesanya has this fight in the bag, but I'm not willing to shell out that -200 for him. There's just too many question marks, especially considering that this is his first fight at 205 pounds. Blachowicz has welcomed a couple past middleweights to 205 pounds, and he's knocked out all of them. So he goes out there and showcases, that he can live up to the moment and truly accomplish, the high standards that are set out for him, just as it's been shown with him capturing that light heavyweight title, coming into that fight against Dominic Reyes as a plus 200 underdog as well, too. That's something people overlook as well. So I still do favor Adesanya here. I think he wins this fight late, though, maybe round 5 KO or a decision. So if you want to look at the props for that specifically, we got Adesanya by decision at plus 205, not too shabby. And if you're getting a little bit crazy like me, if you like to get a little bit funky, Adesanya wins in round 5 at plus 1900. But yeah, I got Adesanya here, KO or decision. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, again, this is another fight that I'm looking to chase some of these overs. Jan Blachowicz, if anything, he's got legendary durability. I mean, the guy's tough. He's very tough to put away. He hasn't been knocked out a whole lot in his career. And yeah, you see him, I guess, against Thiago Santos, who's just a big power puncher, but he makes a mental lapse in that fight. He's doing good through the first 2 rounds. In the third round, it's almost like Ryan Bader, Lyoto Machida. Like, you kind of get impatient of waiting there and staring at this guy, so you rush in and they hit you with a clean counter. Outside of that, Jan Blachowicz, again, he's been in there with a lot of tough guys. He's taken shots. He's a durable enough guy. If Izzy's going to win this fight, I don't think Izzy goes out there and knocks Jan in the first round. Again, Izzy's coming up a weight class. Technically speaking, he's coming up 2 weight classes when you consider the move from 85 to 205 is 20 pounds, The move from 35 to 45 or 45 to 55 or 55 to 170, like none of these are 20-pound jumps. So middleweight to light heavyweight is significant enough. If it takes away some of his power, takes away some of his pop, he's not quite, the same. He's always going to be a great striker, fluid striker, but if the power is not the same, Jan could take a little bit more. We're looking for over 2.5. We're looking for a fight to start round 3. We're looking for a fight to start round 4. Flip side to that, if Jan is able to flip the script on Izzy and has some success with his striking, has some success crashing forward, closing the distance, being the aggressor, and even has some success getting this fight to the ground, where Jan's actually a pretty decent black belt, very good top pressure, very heavy guy. If he is able to get the fight to the ground, it's all just slowing it down. So, I mean, we're looking to hit overs is the main thing, but I think the UFC knows exactly what they're doing with Israel Adesanya. You have to look at this as a company that's predicated on their stars, right? We need stars. When they sold for those billions of dollars, which I still scratch my head out, they came up with that assessment of the company's value. But regardless, when they made that deal, it's like we have Conor McGregor and we have Ronda Rousey, 2 absolute mega stars capable of selling. That's what you're going for. In the past, they've had a Chuck Liddell. They've had their Tito Ortizes. They've had these stretches where you have people selling. Most recently, it's been Khabib Nurmagomedov, but he's retired. Conor comes back, but he loses and did not look good. The interest there is not quite the same, although he'll still sell 1 million pay-per-views if he wants. He's a once-a-year fighter, and his best days appear to be behind him. John Jones has never been a pay-per-view seller, even though he's got such a nice-looking record and this and that, and he's undefeated, and he's got a notorious character. He's always been a low pay-per-view seller. Ronda Rousey is clearly retired. They don't have any of these big stars that they're able to sell. And it appears that Israel Adesanya is that guy for them. I mean, he's got a polarizing personality in that he seems to love the women. He seems to love the men. He seems to love the dogs. The guy's fucking weird, but like there's a little bit of something there for everybody. He's an absolute fantastic martial artist. We're familiar with his glory kickboxing days, or his Muay Thai background and this and that. But beyond that, I mean, he's a smart guy, right? He's got the personality. That's all by design, help sell tickets and be marketable. But as far as his style goes, he's smart. He doesn't have to overexert himself. He's got the right strike selection. He's not a god. He's not a demigod. I mean, you mentioned the Kelvin Gastelum fight. It's 2-2 going into the 5th. He got seriously wobbled and hurt by a head kick by a 5'9" fat welterweight. Like, this is not a good look, man. And then the 5th round, he looks tremendous. The Yoel Romero fight, he lost. How did he win that fight? Because nothing happened.
Nothing happened. That's why. Yeah.
You got to beat the champ to be the champ. And that was like, well, I stared down the champ, so I'm the champ. It's like, oh, listen, I thought you won, but such a bad fight. I wouldn't have given you the title either. Izzy retains. And then through those like bad fights, you get the Whitaker fight, you get the Paulo Costa fight, where it's like masterpiece. This guy's got it, masterpiece. But like if Jan sits back, like is Izzy going to go after him? No, he wants to counterpunch, right? So Jan's going to lead the dance. And Jan's got tools, man. Like, not only does he have a decent punching power, like he could hit you with the hook, he's got the nasty body kick, man. He just hits the body, hurts the body. That's what slowed Dominic Reyes down. It's like his body was mince meat, 6 minutes into that fight. Now all of a sudden you can't defend yourself. You're tiring, you're slowing. Like, he could pose problems for Israel Adesanya, but I think the leg kick game, I think the distance, I think the speed should all play out. I think Izzy probably does get the job done. I think Izzy gets the job done by decision. I know that sounds crazy, but I mean, last week was the same thing. People thought Don was going to win, but 25 minutes is a long time for heavyweights, right? But it's not. If nothing's going on, it's not. Ankalaev versus Krylov. I had Ankalaev by decision. Like, dude, a Krylov fight could be any. You've seen Krylov's last fight. Same thing. He's a decision, or he's a finisher, but there's trends, there's ways to win a fight that are just slowing the pace down. This is probably striker versus striker. 25 minutes of this is going to be hectic. But similar to last week, 25 minutes of striker versus striker where neither guy's really looking to overcommit slows things down. Izzy's got the power, but still, he went 5 rounds of Kelvin Gastelum. Paulo Costa threw 0 significant. I think he threw something like -7 significant strikes. Like, Paulo Costa just stared at him. Yoel just stared at him, but that all slows shit down. So I think with Jan's not just going to stare at him, but he's not going to bum rush him for 25 minutes. There's going to be slowing down of the fight. I think it gets some of these overs anyway. So I think as far as the prop bet that I like on this fight, I really like that over 2.5 at -145. Again, does the fight get greasy beyond that? Potentially, but I'm looking to hit overs on this fight. The over 3.5 is plus 100. The over 4.5 is plus 135. And the fight just to outright go the distance is plus 140. So, I mean, I would probably take the over 4.5 over the fight goes the distance. Dude, it's 5 points, man. And they're going to be tired by the 5th round. Things always get a little dicey. And in the 5th, if Jan's down and he's still there, he'll go after it. And that could lead to a finish from both sides. He goes after and gets caught the way he did against Thiago, or he goes after it and he makes some magic happen. But regardless, it's like with Israel, he seems to just operate at a higher level. If you fight him at a low level, he's willing to fight to that, but he always just does a little bit more to get the job done. Anyways, we're in the business of giving a prop. The straight up bet on this, I don't like as much as hitting that over 2.5. So that would be the play on this one, is that even if Jan does pull it off, he's not knocking out Izzy in the first round. And if Izzy goes out there and looks great and gets the win, I don't think he's knocking out Jan in the first round. So get me to the second, get me to the third, get me to the fourth. I'd be happy with all that.
Good point here brought up by one of our viewers, Rick Sanchez. First time he's ever fought in a small octagon. Now, I thought that was initially incorrect when he fought Brad Tavares on the Ultimate Fighter finale, but that was one of those weird Ultimate Fighter finales that they actually had at T-Mobile Arena, which was weird as hell to have a finale at such a big arena like that. But yeah, so I'm interested to see how that plays out in this fight, given that these guys are two bigger guys, and Israel Adesanya definitely needs that space to move around and get his work going. Go ahead, Cody.
The last thing I would say is that try to get, if you had a mole, you had somebody on the inside, right? The key here is get somebody to follow Jan Blachowicz after weigh-ins, specifically right around 6:30, 7 o'clock at night when he goes for dinner. And if it turns out he's drinking wine, no fucking chance here. We know by now you can't drink wine the night before an Izzy fight and defeat the man. So keep in mind that. We'll do the weigh-in show tomorrow and hopefully get our mole on it. But if he comes in sober, he's got a chance.
I know you got insiders over there, so we'll be leaning on you tomorrow to see if we can get somebody. All right, let's get to our 3 best bets here. This is the way that we wrap up the show. Let me just share the screen here real quick. All right. So I'll start things off as always. The first one that I like is the Amanda Lemos in round 3. You guys know I had to drop that, especially if that was the look that I was giving you guys with the actual breakdown. Lemos in round 3 plus 1375. I don't like the way that we see Lavinia Souza slow down later in her fights, and Lemos seems to have some power and some pop on her shots that I think she'll be able to give Souza some issues here. And one thing, again, that always will stick out in my mind is seeing Souza go out there and pull guard in the 3rd round of a fight that is super close. So that just does not sit well with me. And we know Lemos can go out there and put on the pressure and the striking. And I feel like she'll have a significant striking advantage, especially the later that this fight goes. So yeah, you're damn right. I'm doing plus 1375 on Lemos there. Next up, I got Makhachev via sub plus 380. I think I saw plus 400 as well too. I think that Dober, with the majority of his losses as of late coming via submission, and how much success I believe Makhachev will have on the ground with his grappling, I think a submission could open itself up, whether it's an arm triangle choke, whether it's a rear naked choke, whatever it may be. I like that spot. I like that plus 380 line. And then lastly, I like Nunes round 1 plus 170. I think it's going to just take one takedown. I think Megan Anderson gives up her back, and we see Nunes either sink in a choke, get a ground and pound finish. But I think I honestly believe that it will come down to literally just one takedown. As long as Nunes can assert solid top position at that point, she will eventually get that full mount, rain down shots from there. Megan Anderson gives up her back, and we either get a rear naked choke or we get a ground and pound finish. But I think it happens in round 1. All right, Cody, you're up.
Okay, so I actually got a lot of plus money plays this week, and I love the overs, man. I like the decisions. I like the overs. We got Mario Bautista first and foremost. I mean, love to get one on the first night of the card to get things rolling. And yeah, with Bautista, he's got the output. He's got good cardio. He's got the wrestling. I think that's the key. Trevin Jones has been finished once in 6 pro losses. He's shown decent durability. I think Mario Bautista just puts the pace on him, mixes in the takedowns, wins the decision. That's plus 140. Sign me up for that. Moving on, we're going to go with another plus 140. And we've got our boy Sean Brady via decision, plus 140. Yeah, again, with Brady, I mean, he's got all the skills in the world. I hope he doesn't put too much of a pace on Jake Matthews and finish him at some point, but I don't see him submitting Jake Matthews. As for the knockout, he does have the power, he does have the striking advantage, but Jake Matthews has a decent enough chin. I think that he'll try to slow the fight down as much as he can. Brady ultimately comes through on the other side, so another plus 40 price tag there. And then, hey, let's go for a slightly bigger one. I can't guarantee, well, I need a mole to figure out if Jan Blachowicz will be drinking wine before the fight, but I do not need a mole to tell you that Keith Peterson will be drinking the booze and smoking the cigs. And as long as whoever's ref in Dominic Cruz's fight doesn't, we don't get an early stoppage. Not that it was an early stoppage, it wasn't. But all jokes aside, I mean, Dominic Cruz, as long as he's not making up whack-ass excuses after the fight, comes in here, does what he's capable of doing. He's a live underdog. I'm not telling you by making this one of my top three prop here that I just feel so good about this, and Casey Kinney's got no chance. And while it's a close fight, it's a closely contested fight, but I got this fight going the distance. When you look at this fight goes the distance, most people are on the same page. Cruz to win, it's a 50-50 premise. But him by decision plus 260, it's a nice tag. It's a nice tag I'm looking to go for. He's got volume.
Objection.
Yeah.
You actually got Benavidez via decision, not Cruz via decision.
Sorry. Yeah.
Let me wind you back a little bit here. And your mic is muted again. Cody really stumbling on the way out here, but it's all good. We know that he likes Cruz via decision, so he is making a point for that. But that's definitely not the top three bets that he sent on over my way. But he does have Benavidez.
My bad. We got Joby one, so we don't got to worry about Sigs and Booze at least. But I mean, listen, he's a back class fighter. He's fought for the title 4 times. What are the spots that Joseph Benavidez has lost throughout his career? Highest point of the mountain, these absolute title fights, taking on the best guys. Askarov is on his way to title contention, but he's just not quite there yet. So I think that Joseph Benavidez is able to go out there, hopefully mix in the wrestling. You know, he's got better technical boxing as well. He's got better output. If this fight stays standing, I think he just lands the better shots. If this fight hits the ground, scramble. Mix it up, get some reversals, get some sweeps, end up on top. Joseph Benavidez, he's live for that for sure. If I had a fourth prop, I might go with that Cruz by decision. No, you're right, man. I don't even know why I was saying that. Like Cruz by Kinney, that's a fucking close fight. Like I don't want to disrespect Kinney. It's a nice price on Cruz. Benavidez here, it's like, yeah, I don't want to write off Askarov, but I feel a lot better about Joseph Benavidez than his premise. I just think the line is a little bit off. So yeah, we're gonna go with 3+ money plays this time. Bautista by decision, Brady by decision, and Joseph Benavidez by decision.
I like it all. I like to go a little bit deeper on these props, but I know my guy Cody likes those ones that are a little bit more surefire, and I definitely can't disagree with either of those. The only one that I have a little bit of a question about is that Bautista one, as I think you could potentially get a submission, but I do like that plus 140 line for sure. All right. That was another great episode in the books. Always happy to chop it up with Cody Saftic from a propping you up perspective. As always, you guys know you guys can catch us tomorrow night as well, too, at 9 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be with the rest of the crew, me, Cody, Bleed, and MMA Prediction Guru, breaking down the fights from you guys, at least with the weigh-ins in mind, right? There's a couple of things that we want to spot at the weigh-ins, specifically how light does Israel Adesanya step on the scales? That's going to be the big question, and we're going to break it down for you guys tomorrow evening, so make sure you guys join us for that. Cody, on the way out, anything you want to drop for the fellas in the chat?
No, I'm worried my mic's going to mute itself again here. There's a ghost or something. Anyways, yeah, I really appreciate all the turnout, good support tonight. Chat, obviously live as always, and looking forward to chatting with you guys tomorrow. And yeah, then we'll jump a little more in depth onto those money lines, and we'll got Bleed and Guru to join the mix. And listen, me and you seem to be on the same page, so let's see if we're all on the same page or if there's a Team Lock and Saftic versus Bleed and Guru.
Team Canada.
So,
Team Canada.
Yeah. Team Canada versus Team USA. We'll see how things shake out tomorrow, but always exciting, always fun. 15 fights. Who knows if anything gets knocked off between here and there. I'm really hoping not. I do like this card and have a nice, good spots to get at. So anyways, I appreciate everyone joining in, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right, yeah, we got 350 people in the chat. Make sure you guys hit that like. We're almost at that 200 like mark. Make sure we eclipse that before we get out of here. But yeah, shout out to everybody in the chat. You guys are awesome. Always staying active in the chat. It's always fun to watch the chat as we're doing our breakdowns as well too. And we definitely take those things into consideration as we're doing our own breakdowns as well. So shout out to everybody there, and shout out to anybody watching this post live stream as well. You guys are greatly appreciated. It means a lot to us. And again, just make sure you guys hit that like. That helps us a lot too. All right. Tomorrow evening, 9 p.m. Eastern, the final weigh-in. Me, Cody, Bleed, and MMA Prediction Guru are going to break the fights down for you one last time, and we hope that you guys can join us for that. So we'll see you tomorrow night for the final weigh-in, 9 p.m. Eastern. See you guys then.